the ice and fire demon god of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 626. Demon King level wizards are out of control. That's great, Dumbledore said with a smile, but this also requires her consent. Lin nodded slightly. He looked through the window of the principal's office at the already dim sky outside and said, when Astoria wakes up in the school hospital, we will talk to her about this matter. After leaving the principal's office, Lin sent Irina back to rest, and after the day was completely bright, he and Irving went to the school hospital to visit Astoria. After completely mastering the blood curse in her body, Astoria's body was no longer in any serious trouble. Under the treatment of Madame Pomfrey, a senior therapist, her condition was better than ever. She only needed to stay in the school hospital for a few more days of observation, and then she would be able to be discharged safely. Lin told Astoria everything about analyzing the ancient magic blood curse and reversing that secret method into a new magic. Sure. Astoria nodded with shining eyes after hearing this. I'll do it as soon as possible. She knew the pain of the blood curse very well, and now she had the opportunity to reverse the method that everyone could use to remove the blood curse. Why not do it? Exclamation mark. In Astoria's view, the ancient magic blood curse she learned was like a gift from God, saving her from the abyss of despair. The predecessors planted trees, and the descendants enjoyed the shade. Now, she can save more people in the same way, and this feeling of being needed makes her very happy. Just when Irving was about to say something, two more people rashly broke into the school hospital. Those two people were Harry and Ron. They were naturally here to visit Astoria. In addition, they were also here to find Lin. From a little snake from Slytherin College in the hall, they learned that Lin and Irving came to the school hospital early in the morning. Good morning, Astoria. By the way, Lin, this is today's Daily Prophet. Take a look. Harry greeted Astoria first, then looked at Lin, and threw a copy of the Daily Prophet to Lin. Lin opened the Daily Prophet in his hand with doubt, and a headline on the front page caught his eye. Goblin protest. Gringotts demands the Ministry of Magic to investigate and give an explanation. Following the eye-catching headline, Lin frowned slightly and looked at the content of the article. This is a protest statement from the goblins, and the content is roughly, Gringotts was robbed, and the British Ministry of Magic, as the government of the British wizarding world, should not turn a blind eye to the robbery of Gringotts. In addition, Gringotts is within the jurisdiction of the British Ministry of Magic. Such a vicious incident occurred in the jurisdiction of the British Ministry of Magic, but the British Ministry of Magic failed to stop the vicious incident in time, allowing the criminals to rob Gringotts and commit heinous crimes. This is the incompetence and inaction of the British Ministry of Magic. Therefore, Gringotts asked the Ministry of Magic to investigate the Gringotts robbery, arrest the robbers who robbed Gringotts, compensate Gringotts for the loss of about 3.8 billion gold galleons, and apologize to Gringotts in the name of the Ministry of Magic. What a joke, these stupid goblins. Do they really think that the Ministry of Magic today is still the Ministry of Magic that Fudge is in charge of? Irving sneered after reading the content of this protest statement. Lin also disagreed. He believed that old Barty could handle this problem. Even if it doesn't work, even if Dumbledore doesn't take action, with him and Irina, two Demon King level wizards, they can suppress it at any time. Even if the relationship between wizards and goblins deteriorates to the point where the third goblin rebellion is about to break out. After all, no matter how many conspiracies and intrigues there are in the magic world, they can't escape the iron law of power supremacy. At the same time, the Ministry of Magic. Minister Crouch, how should we respond to the goblins' protest? A staff member of the Ministry of Magic came to old Barty with an anxious look on his face. He held a document about the goblins' protest and asked anxiously. However, facing the goblins' protest and the panic of his subordinates, old Barty did not change his expression. He even took a sip of the black tea in his cup calmly. The goblins' protest? Haha, it's just a clown. Old Barty said with a chuckle, but there was an infinite coldness flashing in his eyes. The employee of the Ministry of Magic was stunned. He said hesitantly, Minister Crouch, what should we do then? Old Barty snorted coldly and said lightly, "Tell those goblins that the property in the 5 vaults belongs to wizards, not goblins. Among them, the property in the vault of the royal family has been returned to its original owner. As for the other 4 vaults, their holders are all Death Eaters. In order to defeat Voldemort, and for greater peace in the wizarding world, the Ministry of Magic confiscated the stolen property of these Death Eaters, and used it for the construction of the wizarding world. In addition, the damage to the underground vaults and the casualties of the goblins were caused by the Demon King level wizards. According to the latest regulations of the British Ministry of Magic, the Ministry of Magic and the Demon King level wizards within its jurisdiction are allies, neutrals, or enemies, rather than a relationship of command and being ruled. If Gringotts wants to obtain compensation for the goblin casualties and the damage to the underground vault, please communicate with the relevant Demon King level wizards. The British Ministry of Magic has no right to intervene or inquire about this matter. As for the security of Gringotts, the goblins can ask the Ministry of Magic to send auras to prevent similar vicious incidents from happening again. Old Barty said in a deep voice. Listening to Old Barty's words, the Ministry of Magic employee nodded, while taking out a pen and paper to record. However, after hearing what Old Barty said about the latest regulations of the British Ministry of Magic, the Ministry of Magic employee was completely stunned. He looked at Old Barty in disbelief and asked, "The Ministry of Magic and the Demon King level wizards within its jurisdiction are allies, neutrals, or enemies, not rulers and ruled. Minister Crouch, does our British Ministry of Magic have such a regulation?" Hearing this, Old Barty smiled slightly and said softly, "It didn't exist before, but after today, it will. By the way, before issuing this notice, please inform all my colleagues that we need to hold a meeting to vote on the new regulations of the Ministry of Magic." The employee of the Ministry of Magic looked at Old Barty in amazement. He didn't expect Old Barty to make such a decision. The relationship between the Demon King level wizards and the British magic world and the British Ministry of Magic is an ally, neutral or hostile relationship, and they are no longer under the jurisdiction of the British Ministry of Magic. Wouldn't this cause a big mess? Exclamation mark. If a free man who is not under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Magic has evil intentions towards the British magic world, the harm it brings is absolutely incalculable. But soon, the employee of the Ministry of Magic figured it out. Even if the British Ministry of Magic nominally had the right to govern the Demon King level wizards, if it did not have the strength, it would ultimately be a joke. Chapter 627 smells like conspiracy. The Ministry of Magic doesn't want to take care of this matter? Exclamation mark. If Dumbledore was the only Demon King in the British magic world like decades ago, then the British Ministry of Magic could still make this Demon King controllable by letting Dumbledore serve as the Minister of Magic. After the appearance of Voldemort, the second Demon King in the British magic world, he had endless ambitions, and did not obey the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Magic at all. He swept the British magic world with darkness, making the authority and power of the Ministry of Magic almost a joke. If Voldemort had not fallen quickly, if Voldemort had been allowed to wreak havoc for a few more years, I'm afraid that the Ministry of Magic would have become Voldemort's political tool. Until now, the number of Demon Kings in the British magic world has been growing. Voldemort, who once fell, has resurrected and made a comeback, and the new Demon Kings are not like Dumbledore, who is willing to bind himself to the laws of the Ministry of Magic. The change in the situation requires that the Ministry of Magic's policies must be changed for this. Minister Crouch was not crazy for doing this, but was far-sighted, and could even be said to be the most far-sighted wizard in the entire Ministry of Magic. Thinking of this, the Ministry of Magic employee looked at Old Barty deeply, and after he respectfully agreed, he left the minister's office. The release of the goblin's protest statement was like a boulder falling into the water, stirring up a wave. Countless wizards in the British magic world gathered together to discuss the goblin's protest statement. Of course, most wizards tended to reject the goblin's claim. After all, among the wizards involved in this great robbery, there was Dumbledore, whom they admired very much, Lin En, who repelled Voldemort in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village, and Newt Scamander, who wrote their textbook on the protection of magical creatures. What's more, they robbed Gringotts to destroy Voldemort's Horcruxes. How many people in the British magic world would like to be able to really kill Voldemort? Exclamation mark. Even though some wizards did not understand the purpose of Lin En and his team's robbery of Gringotts, and missed the news about Voldemort's Horcrux in the Daily Prophet, this did not affect their support for Dumbledore. On the second day, the Ministry of Magic issued a notice and promulgated the latest regulations, namely that the British Ministry of Magic and the Demon King level wizards within its jurisdiction are allies, neutrals, or enemies, rather than a ruling and being ruled relationship. The entire British magic world was in an uproar. Wizards in the streets and alleys were discussing this latest regulation issued by the British Ministry of Magic. Among these wizards, there were half supporters and half opponents. Wizards who supported this new regulation believed that the British Ministry of Magic was self-aware in doing so. Even if the Ministry of Magic wanted to interfere with the actions of the Demon King level wizards, did the Ministry of Magic have the ability to do so? Exclamation mark. The Ministry of Magic, which was almost penetrated by Voldemort, was the best proof. The wizards who oppose this new regulation believe that the British Ministry of Magic is undoubtedly handing over its own power to others. If the Ministry of Magic is not qualified to manage the Demon King level wizards, then every Demon King level wizard can do whatever he wants and shit on the Ministry of Magic? Exclamation mark. However, these opposing wizards seem to have missed a point. It is true that the new regulations clearly state that from now on, the British Ministry of Magic and the Demon King level wizards within its jurisdiction will no longer be in a relationship of command and being ruled. But don't forget that there is another most important point in this new regulation, that is, the relationship between the British Ministry of Magic and the Demon King level wizards within its jurisdiction is not only an alliance and neutral relationship, but also a hostile relationship. This also means that the Ministry of Magic does not allow Demon King level wizards to do whatever they want. They are willing to maintain friendly exchanges with Demon King level wizards, and that is also under the premise that these Demon King level wizards are willing to respect the Ministry of Magic. And a demon level wizard like Voldemort who has the ambition to overthrow the Ministry of Magic, kills wantonly, and tries to bring darkness to the British magic world is undoubtedly a demon level wizard with a hostile relationship. Facing a demon level wizard with a hostile relationship, the attitude of the Ministry of Magic is naturally to destroy it at all costs. With the checks and balances of demon level wizards with allies, the Ministry of Magic does not need to worry that those demon level wizards with hostile relations will destroy the Ministry of Magic in one fell swoop. The regulation specially added by the Ministry of Magic against the Death Eaters and the law that imposes the death penalty on the Death Eaters are the best proof. In fact, the biggest role of this new regulation has never been a struggle between power, but simply the British Ministry of Magic expresses its position and respect to the friendly demon level wizards within its jurisdiction. As long as the British Ministry of Magic and demon level wizards such as Lin have an alliance relationship, then when Voldemort attacks the Ministry of Magic in the future, the Ministry of Magic can ask for help from Lin and others as an ally. Otherwise, if the Ministry of Magic still uses a tone of command to ask the Demon King level wizards like Dumbledore to fight Voldemort and Grindelwald as it did decades or even 100 years ago, then the Ministry of Magic will only be destroyed. After all, Lin and Irina have never been good people, and they will not be manipulated by others. The wizards in the British magic world have a heated discussion about this new regulation, but the goblins in Gringotts smell the smell of conspiracy. The British Ministry of Magic and the Demon King level wizards are no longer in a relationship of command and being ruled. What exactly does the Ministry of Magic want to do? In Gringotts, the goblins are cursing. You know, in the Gringotts robbery, almost all the goblins who saw the faces of the 5 robbers died in the robbery. Some of them died at the hands of Lin and others, but most of the goblins died under the explosion of the shells of their own all-chemical red cannons. Therefore, the reason why they were able to determine that Dumbledore and Lin participated in the Gringotts robbery was only because they were identified as 2 Demon King level wizards. As for Green, Newt and Irina, even if they knew it well, they could not file a lawsuit against these 3 people. After all, they had no evidence to show that the other 3 of the 5 wizards who participated in the Gringotts robbery were them. Now, the only 2 Demon King level wizards that these goblins could identify, Lin and Dumbledore, were classified by the Ministry of Magic as wizards without authority. Doesn't this clearly tell them that the Ministry of Magic doesn't want to take care of this matter? Exclamation mark. If the announcement of the Ministry of Magic's promulgation of the new regulations only made these goblins suspicious, then the response to the goblins' protest statement issued by Old Barty that night completely confirmed their speculation. Chapter 628. Suspend all operations at Gringotts. After seeing the response from the Ministry of Magic, the goblins were so angry that they almost had a brain hemorrhage. What do you mean the Ministry of Magic is not qualified to manage the 2 Demon King level wizards, and let Gringotts contact the relevant Demon King level wizards on their own? Exclamation mark. The reason why Gringotts did not send goblins to confront Lin and Dumbledore was not because they were afraid of the other party's power. Exclamation mark. The reason why Gringotts wanted the Ministry of Magic to make decisions for them was not because they were attracted by the power of the Ministry of Magic government. Exclamation mark. What else did you say? If the goblins are worried about the safety of Gringotts, they can send auras to Gringotts. Exclamation mark. Listen to it yourself. Are you talking human words? Exclamation mark. The goblins in Gringotts can hear abacus beads clearly. If the goblins let auras settle in Gringotts, then can the goblins' right to control finance really be preserved? If auras guard the key roads of Gringotts, then the Ministry of Magic does not need to send more people to destroy the goblins. Especially the gorgeous goblin who had consulted Arnold was so angry that he almost vomited blood. President Ol, what should we do? A goblin looked at the gorgeous goblin in fear. The other party was trembling all over, as if he would faint at any time. Yes, the gorgeous goblin who met Arnold in person and asked for advice on how to deal with it was Ol, the president of Gringotts, the only wizard bank in the magical world, and the person in charge of Gringotts. Although Arnold was the actual leader of the goblins, Arnold, who devoted most of his energy to alchemy, naturally could not manage Gringotts in every detail. Therefore, Arnold needed a spokesperson, that is, Ol, the current president of Gringotts. Ol's eyes were red, and he was shaking with anger. He said viciously, "Despicable greedy wizard. Pass the order to suspend all business of Gringotts until the Ministry of Magic makes another statement." Hearing Ol's words, the goblins in Gringotts were in an uproar. Suspend all business of Gringotts? Exclamation mark. You know, Gringotts is the only goblin bank in the British wizarding world. If Gringotts really suspends all business, then the loss of Gringotts alone, the loss of gold galleons per minute, is in the tens of thousands. What's more, almost all wizards in the entire British wizarding world have opened vaults in Gringotts. If these wizards can't get the money and make trouble in Gringotts, Gringotts may not be able to afford the price. Especially those wizards who are in urgent need of money, but can't get their own money, they may choose to break into Gringotts. In that case, the loss of Gringotts may be greater than the Gringotts robbery that happened a few weeks ago. Many goblins questioned Ol, believing that this decision would likely cause Gringotts to fall into the abyss. However, Ol just stared at the goblins below with red eyes until they quieted down. "Don't tell me," Ol said softly, his tone extremely cold. "Do we goblins deserve to bear the losses of the Gringotts robbery?" Hearing Ol's words, a goblin immediately said anxiously, "Of course not, President Ol, we." Ol interrupted the goblin and said ferociously, "We can't suffer such losses, so we must make the entire British wizarding world pay the price for the sins committed by those 2 damn Demon King level wizards. If a wizard comes to Gringotts and finds that he can't withdraw money, you tell them that it's because those 2 Demon King level wizards robbed Gringotts, which caused Gringotts to lose the ability to serve the British wizarding world and was forced to temporarily close all businesses. Tell them that only when those 2 Demon King level wizards are punished and compensate Gringotts for its losses, Gringotts will be able to reopen these businesses and serve the British wizarding world. The suspension of business is caused by those 2 Demon King level wizards. Let them settle accounts with those 2 Demon King level wizards. In this way, with the public opinion of the wizards who have suffered losses because of our suspension of business, we can put pressure on the 2 demon level wizards and the British Ministry of Magic. I don't believe they can continue to do nothing," Ol said coldly. "The goblins are greedy, but they are good at controlling human nature. Arnold is like this, and Ol is the same. At this moment, Ol's behavior is no different from the way some annoying teachers in the schools of Lin and Irina's previous lives scolded the students who made mistakes. If you don't accept the punishment, then the whole class will not attend the class, and everyone will sit quietly and wait for you to accept the punishment. Those teachers took advantage of human hearts and human nature, deliberately leading the whole class to attack the student who made the mistake and use the whole class as a tool to put pressure on the student who made the mistake, forcing the student who made the mistake to obey. Isn't that exactly what Ol did? Exclamation mark. All operations of Gringotts were suspended, and the property of wizards in Gringotts of the entire British wizarding world was used as collateral. In addition, some of the more foolish and easily bewitched wizards were guided to attack Lin and Dumbledore through public opinion, so as to achieve their own goals. But, a goblin said in embarrassment, how can those despicable wizards do what we say? If they break into Gringotts, with so many wizards, I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to stop them. Ol sneered, and he said lightly, don't we still have a complete all-chemical red cannon stored in our underground vault? That is the masterpiece of Master Arnold. Push it to the lobby of Gringotts and load it with all-chemical shells. Haha, I don't think these life-loving, death-fearing and stupid wizards will choose to break into Gringotts. There are many wizards who prefer money to life, but I have never seen one who wants to die knowing that he will die. Ol said with contempt. Before the Gringotts robbery, there was a reason why Gringotts was known as the safest place in the world. In terms of military deterrence, Gringotts had never been afraid of any force. The all-chemical red cannon that was enough to threaten the Demon King level wizards was enough to scare countless wizards. What's more, the all-chemical weapons refined by Master Arnold were far more than just the all-chemical red cannon. Thinking of this, Ol, who was trembling with anger because of the statement issued by the Ministry of Magic, finally showed a sinister smile. After hearing Ol's words, the goblins finally brightened up and no longer opposed Ol's orders. If there is really a way to use those stupid wizards and demand the compensation they deserve, then what is the loss caused by suspending all Gringotts business? Exclamation mark. What's more, with the all-chemical red cannon, an all-chemical weapon that can threaten the Demon King level wizards, even if they really took all the gold galleons in the underground vault for themselves, causing a financial crisis in the entire magic world, and then launched a third goblin rebellion, what can those wizards do? Exclamation mark. The all-chemical weapons refined by Arnold, at this moment, gave these goblins blind confidence, or arrogance. And this arrogance, sometimes, may bring irresistible destruction to their survival. After all, weakness and ignorance have never been obstacles to survival, but arrogance is. Chapter 629, the all-chemical weapon that rivals the Demon King level wizard has the Ministry of Magic in an uproar. The next day, the second statement issued by the goblins caused an uproar in the British wizarding world. Suspend all business at Gringotts. After reading the Daily Prophet that published the goblin statement, the wizards of the British wizarding world flocked to Diagon Alley, especially those wizards who stored almost all their property in the vault of Gringotts. When they arrived at the lobby of Gringotts, the bright suspended business sign was erected in the middle of the lobby, and the goblins sitting behind the counter disappeared, replaced by more than 200 fully armed goblins. These goblins wore armor made of mithril, and in front of the 200 goblins, there was a metal pipe mounted on a bipod with a chain on the right side. Although the wizards who came to Gringotts did not know what the alchemical creations in front of these goblins were, judging from the postures of these goblins, these alchemical creations must be alchemical weapons used for killing. In addition to the 200 goblins, the remaining fully armed goblins surrounded a thicker metal tube on both sides. The wizards who came here could see a round metal ball from the metal tube. Goblins, what do you mean by suspending business? I want to take away the galleons I have stored in the vault. A wizard roared, staring at the goblin in the front with wide eyes. As the wizard's voice fell, many wizards responded loudly to him, and they all wanted to take their money. In the midst of the crowd's anger, a goblin in Gringotts uniform finally came out. It just glanced coldly at the wizard in front and said, Gringotts was robbed, resulting in serious problems with the security of the underground vault. We need enough funds to maintain the protection of the underground vault. Before that, we cannot provide services to you, and cannot conduct business normally until the robbers who robbed Gringotts are arrested, and the stolen goods are returned to Gringotts. If you want to take away the galleons, then catch those robbers instead of making a fuss here," the goblin said lightly. Hearing the goblin's words, the wizard's eyes widened immediately. He questioned, "The Ministry of Magic has already said that the things in the 4 vaults belong to the Death Eaters and have been confiscated by the Ministry of Magic. As for Mr. Dumbledore and Mr. Owl, you should go find them yourself. What does it have to do with us ordinary people?" The wizards around him echoed his words, raised their wands and shouted loudly, "That's right, that's right. Open Gringotts for business, give me back the gold galleons. Despicable goblins, give me back the gold galleons in my vault. Open Gringotts for business." These wizards protested loudly, and the anger spread rapidly among them. Soon, a wizard ignored the goblin's obstruction and walked quickly to the door leading to the underground vault, trying to break into Gringotts. Bang, 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 bang. But at this moment, the 10 goblins standing behind the metal pipes closest to the wizard pointed the metal pipes in front of them at the soles of the wizard's feet and pressed the trigger. In just one breath, dozens of alchemical bullets broke through the air, and they actually made holes under the wizard's feet that were bigger than his head. You know, the floor of Gringotts lobby is made of metal, and the hardness of this metal is not even enough for the wizard's explosive spell to blow it up. Even the Vulcan that Dumbledore released last time could not melt the ground. But it was the bullets fired by these goblins that blew such a big hole in such a hard ground. Seeing that, the wizard retreated with horror. The faces of the goblins in the mithril helmets standing behind the metal pipes all showed smug smiles. These alchemical weapons have the lethality to kill Demon King level wizards, let alone these weak and stupid wizards! Exclamation mark. Damn goblins, are you crazy? The wizard shouted in shock and anger. The goblin in uniform just said coldly, "Gringotts has issued a statement to suspend all operations of Gringotts before receiving the corresponding compensation and repairing the underground vault. During this period, all wizards who try to break into Gringotts will be regarded as invaders." Did you see the 200 alchemical heavy machine guns and an alchemical red cannon set up in the lobby of Gringotts? These are alchemical weapons made by our master Arnold himself. They are used to deal with you. What are they called? Demon King level wizards. If you want to break into Gringotts, consider whether you have the ability first. The goblin in uniform sneered and said. After saying this, it stopped looking at these wizards and turned to leave the lobby of Gringotts. Seeing the goblin in uniform leave, the wizards crowded in the lobby were all shocked and angry. They did not expect that Gringotts would be so domineering to refuse their request to take their gold galleons. At this time, many wizards regretted in their hearts. Why did they trust these damn goblins and put all their wealth in the vault of Gringotts? Now, these goblins are about to occupy their property. What do they want to do? Exclamation mark. Although these wizards wanted to kill all the goblins on the spot, like the Gringotts robbery a few weeks ago, rob these despicable and greedy goblins again, and take back their property. But an alchemical red cannon and 200 alchemical heavy machine guns set up in the lobby of Gringotts brought them back to reason. They never thought that the goblins who were defeated by wizards in the Goblin Rebellion in the 18th century had the power to fight against Demon King level wizards in the past 200 years. If it weren't for the fact that Dumbledore, Lin En, and Irina Lovell, 3 Demon King level wizards, were in charge of the British magic world today, I'm afraid these goblins in Gringotts would have the capital to launch a new Goblin Rebellion. Thinking of this, the wizards were filled with fear. Under the threat of these alchemical weapons, the wizards who squeezed into the lobby of Gringotts no longer dared to force their way in. They could only use magic to conjure up signs and shout loudly in protest. More wizards quietly left Gringotts and reported what happened here to the Ministry of Magic, including the fact that Gringotts had the power to fight against the Demon King level wizards. An hour later, the fact that Gringotts had a large number of alchemical weapons that could fight against the Demon King level wizards made the entire Ministry of Magic explode. Chapter 630. The Jade Emperor calls out to the Buddha for help. The hall of the Ministry of Magic was in a mess. Countless wizards came out of the fireplace, and wizards who mastered the apparition apparated directly into the hall. This hall, which was originally large enough to accommodate hundreds of people, was crowded in a short moment. These wizards came to the Ministry of Magic for only one purpose, which was to tell the Ministry of Magic that Gringotts had alchemical weapons that threatened the Demon King level wizards, and that those despicable goblins were suspected of occupying all the wizards' property. Soon, this information alarmed all the high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic. In order to appease everyone, old Barty had no choice but to hold a meeting immediately to deal with this sudden incident. Minister Crouch, you shouldn't be so tough on Gringotts. Look, Gringotts' counterattack is coming. As soon as the meeting began, a spineless person spoke up. Before old Barty could speak, someone refuted his words. Gringotts' alchemical weapons were not made just for this incident. If these problems had not been exposed by this incident, then by the time the goblins have accumulated enough strength and rebelled again, it will be too late. This wizard was obviously an intelligent man. Even though the situation in Gringotts was very tricky now, at least it could expose some of Gringotts' cards, which was not a bad thing for the Ministry of Magic. I understand all this, said another wizard, but the key question is, how can we solve this problem? The card said, why don't we let Dumbledore and Rao return the property? Minister Crouch, we all know that the property is actually still in Rao's hands. If the property is returned, won't it be a perfect solution to this crisis and allow the people to get their own money? The person next to him immediately sneered and said, what a joke. Don't forget that the new regulations of the Ministry of Magic only came into effect yesterday. We are not qualified to order the Demon King level wizards. So what? The coward shouted with his neck stiff. The authority of the Ministry of Magic cannot be violated. Even if the Demon King level wizards are not subject to jurisdiction, they should obey the requirements of the Ministry of Magic. At this time, old Barty slowly looked at him. Old Barty said indifferently, the authority of the Ministry of Magic cannot be violated. Haha, changing orders every day will make the authority of the Ministry of Magic disappear, right? What's more, why do you think Dumbledore and Rao will listen to the Ministry of Magic? The coward was choked for a moment. Old Barty looked cold, and he continued, what's more, as a wizard government, we can't give in to the mean and greedy goblins. It's true that they have weapons that can threaten the Demon King level wizards, but that's just a threat. What about the British magic world? There are real Demon King level wizards, and there are more than one. Hearing old Barty's words, a wizard serving the royal family echoed, yes, why don't we ask for help from our allies? Don't forget, we just promulgated the latest regulations yesterday, and in that latest regulation, Dumbledore and Raw are our allies. At the same time as the Ministry of Magic promulgated the latest regulations, the Ministry of Magic also gave the relationship between the first batch of Demon King level wizards and the British Ministry of Magic. Among them, Dumbledore, Lin and Irina are allies with the British Ministry of Magic, while Voldemort is hostile to the British Ministry of Magic. As allies of the British Ministry of Magic, Dumbledore, Lin and Irina not only have the right to be free from jurisdiction in the British magic world, but also can make it convenient for the British Ministry of Magic. For example, Lin and Irina will no longer be restricted from using portkeys. Even homemade portkeys are considered legal portkeys by default. Even if they are sold to other wizards, they are legal portkeys. Lin and Irina no longer need to take any exams to obtain any certificates issued by the Ministry of Magic, such as apparition certificates. Not only that, Lin and Irina also have the right to participate in and listen to any meeting or trial of the Ministry of Magic as allies. In contrast, Lin and Irina need to respond to the request for assistance from the British Ministry of Magic on a voluntary basis, and the British Ministry of Magic will also pay enough for the assistance of the demon level wizards. Old Barty looked at the wizard who served the Rowell family with approval and said, I agree to request the assistance of the demon level wizards Lin Rowell and Irina Lovell in the name of the Ministry of Magic to solve the business problems of Gringotts and allow the people to get back their own property. Most wizards agreed with old Barty's proposal, but a few people raised doubts. Minister Crouch, if the Ministry of Magic has to ask outsiders to resolve all its affairs, then how will the public view us? Where is the authority of the Ministry of Magic? Questioned a wizard. Hearing this, old Barty just glanced at him indifferently and said lightly, then, why don't you solve this problem? I think you are also a member of the Ministry of Magic. If you solve this problem, the people will have no objection, right? The wizard trembled all over. He sneered and waved his hands repeatedly. How can I have this ability? That is a weapon. That is enough to threaten the Demon King level wizards. Old Barty didn't even need to speak. Someone snorted and laughed. Since you don't have this ability, then don't stand here and make decisions. Old Barty looked around and said, in addition, we also have to issue a statement demanding that Gringotts resume the business of withdrawing money. The public has the right to take away their own property and solemnly warn Gringotts that their actions are tantamount to stealing the wealth of the entire British wizarding world. It is inevitable that the Ministry of Magic will ask Lin and Irina for help, but correspondingly, the Ministry of Magic must first warn Gringotts of their actions. This is a necessary procedure. Even though everyone knew that those damn goblins would not take their warning seriously and would not reopen the business of withdrawing money just because of this warning. But the Ministry of Magic issued this warning, and this warning was ignored by the goblins, so the Ministry of Magic could ask the Demon King level wizards to take action against Gringotts, and it would be justified. That afternoon, the Ministry of Magic issued a warning to Gringotts, and asked Gringotts to immediately open the channels for withdrawing money, so that the people could get back their own property. As expected, this warning was ignored by the goblins. At the same time as the warning was issued, the representative of the Ministry of Magic who was responsible for asking for help from Lin and Irina, that is, Scrimgeour, the director of the Aura office, had already arrived at Hogwarts Castle. Ministry of Magic asking for help? Gringotts has alchemical weapons that threaten Demon King level wizards? Lin and Irina looked at Scrimgeour in front of them with strange expressions. For some reason, they always felt like the Tathagata Buddha being shouted for help by the Jade Emperor. Chapter 631. Is the master's taste in choosing gifts always so unique? During the Gringotts robbery, Lin and Irina knew that Gringotts had alchemical weapons that threatened the Demon King level wizards. The two alchemical red cannons were the most representative alchemical weapons. Therefore, the two were not surprised to learn from Scrimgeour that there was an alchemical red cannon and 200 alchemical weapons that looked like heavy machine guns in the lobby of Gringotts. However, they were curious about how the goblins got the 200 heavy machine guns to make alchemical weapons. You know, these goblins can't use those fancy spells like wizards, which is why most of them use alchemical weapons to fight. And how did the goblins who can't use the confusion and oblivion spells get these weapons from the muggles? Exclamation mark. Even if some countries don't ban guns, it is impossible for heavy machine guns, such a killer, to flow into the civilian population, no matter where they are. The only possibility is that these goblins hired pure-blooded black wizards. That was the only group of wizards who had the ability to obtain these weapons, but because they did not understand the power of heavy machine guns, they only regarded them as useless steel pipes. We understand the situation. Irina stepped forward and said, we accept the Ministry of Magic's request for assistance, and will attack Gringotts tonight, to destroy the goblins' alchemical weapons. Goblins who possess alchemical weapons that can threaten demon level wizards are definitely a major threat to the wizarding world, and this threat is even higher than Voldemort. Voldemort is only one person, but those alchemical weapons that can threaten demon level wizards are operated by every goblin. Even if there is no request for assistance from the Ministry of Magic, Lin and Irina should take the initiative to eliminate this major threat, no matter what position they stand on. The Ministry of Magic's request for assistance just gave them an excuse to take action, allowing them to have a legitimate reason. Scrimgeour saluted Lin and Irina. Now Scrimgeour no longer dares to treat Lin and Irina as ordinary students as he did in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village. The two possessed the power of the Demon King level wizards, which was enough for him to treat them with the courtesy of treating the Minister of Magic. Scrimgeour said gratefully, on behalf of the Ministry of Magic, I would like to thank you for your help. The Ministry of Magic is also willing to support you to the best of its ability. The Aura office will also cooperate with your actions. Hearing this, Lin and Irina looked at each other. Lin said lightly, then, please station the Auras in Diagon Alley. During our operation, prevent all innocent wizards from approaching the 500-meter range of Gringotts to avoid accidental injuries. In addition, after our operation is over, the Ministry of Magic needs to issue a statement as soon as possible to notify the public to go to Gringotts, where the money withdrawal service has been resumed, to retrieve their property and send people to contain the remains of the destroyed all-chemical weapons in the Department of Mysteries. Lin said so. Scrimger nodded and agreed. Understood. After Scrimger left, Lin looked at Irina and said, from Scrimger's description, the 200 guns those goblins placed in the lobby are most likely heavy machine guns. Compared to the all-chemical red cannons that need to be ignited, they can control the all-chemical heavy machine guns to attack us more quickly. Therefore, I'm afraid I will have to remotely activate the forbidden magic scepter. That is sufficient to cover the lobby of Gringotts before the battle begins. As long as we destroy the all-chemical arrays engraved on the all-chemical heavy machine guns and all-chemical red cannons, they will become ordinary thermal weapons and will no longer have the power to threaten Demon King level wizards. But in order to abolish the all-chemical arrays refined by Demon King level wizards, the corresponding forbidden magic scepter must be powerful enough to seal the magic power of Demon King level wizards. This also means that, after activating the forbidden magic scepter, we will also be unable to use magic power. Lin said solemnly. It is true that with the power of Lin En and Irina, especially under the night sky, it is not difficult to completely destroy the alchemical weapons of the goblins under the premise that the purple myrtle skyfire and purple myrtle frost star can burst out with the most powerful power. However, unlike the Department of Mysteries and the underground vault of Gringotts, which are covered with protective magic and defensive alchemical arrays, there are not many protective measures applied to the lobby of Gringotts, and it cannot resist the residual power of the battle between the Demon Kings. The melting point of the materials used to build the lobby of Gringotts is high enough that even the Vulcan opening release by Dumbledore can resist it, but Irina's purple myrtle frost star is a pure killing power, which is not something that these magic materials can resist. If Lin En and Irina fought in the lobby of Gringotts, those alchemical weapons would certainly be destroyed, but the entire Diagon Alley would probably be destroyed under the residual power of the battle, which is not what Lin En and Irina want to see. Hearing Lin En's words, Irina was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, Lin En, you don't think we can defeat those goblins with our bare hands, do you? She has long been accustomed to using magic to solve problems. If she suddenly loses the ability to use magic, she will be caught off guard. Actually, Lin En looked a little strange, and he smiled bitterly. We are not unarmed. I don't think I told you what Christmas gifts my teacher gave me over the years. Irina was stunned. In her opinion, Mr. Green was a respectable and capable person. So what kind of gift did such a person give to Lin En to make Lin En look like this? Exclamation mark. Lin En said helplessly, the gift my teacher gave me this year is a Type 69 rocket launcher, equipped with 1085mm super caliber hollow charge armor piercing rockets. I think, with it, we should be able to take the initiative. Irina was stunned. She asked in disbelief, is the taste of the teacher in choosing gifts always so unique? Lin En shrugged and said, remember my desert eagle? That was the first gift my teacher gave me. Even if the alchemical array I refined on the desert eagle is ineffective, its own power is enough to penetrate the goblin's protective mask and kill the goblin. You use the rocket launcher to destroy those alchemical heavy machine guns, and I will fire at the goblins next to the alchemical red cannon to prevent them from controlling the alchemical red cannon until you destroy those alchemical heavy machine guns and blow up the alchemical red cannon. The magic forbidden scepter that I researched, which is enough to seal the magic power of the Demon King level wizard, is still a semi-finished product. Therefore, its duration is only about 1 minute. We must complete the above actions within this minute. Lin said so. Chapter 630 till the battle begins. Detonating armor-piercing rockets. Even though Lin En's plan was somewhat shocking, Irina quickly understood and agreed to his plan. Lin En continued, in addition, destroying the alchemical weapons in the lobby of Gringotts is only a cure for the root cause. This time, we may have to face the Demon King level goblin behind Gringotts. Irina whispered, this is in addition to the commission given to us by the Ministry of Magic, right? Lin En nodded solemnly and said, the Demon King level goblin is certainly not our opponent in terms of strength, but how many alchemical weapons similar to the alchemical red cannon and alchemical heavy machine gun are hidden in the basement of Gringotts is still unknown. Therefore, we must negotiate with them. If possible, I still hope that this negotiation can end peacefully. Otherwise, the third goblin rebellion will surely break out. But before all the alchemical weapons are destroyed, the threat of these goblins is like Voldemort before all the Horcruxes are destroyed. Lin En said so. Before all of Voldemort's Horcruxes were destroyed, Voldemort could be resurrected infinitely and constantly come back. Every time he resurrected, he would be more cautious and his hiding place would be increasingly difficult to find. This was Voldemort's biggest threat to the British wizarding world. Before all of the goblins' alchemical weapons were destroyed, there were countless goblins hiding in the entire British wizarding world, holding alchemical weapons that were enough to threaten the Demon King level wizards. If the Third Goblin Rebellion broke out, when the wizards were unprepared, then the attack launched by goblins from all over the British wizarding world would definitely catch the wizards off guard. After all, not all wizards can deal with alchemical weapons that are enough to threaten the Demon King level wizards. And Lin and Irina were too busy to do anything. Even if they had a large number of any door keys in their hands, they couldn't appear in every place in the British wizarding world. Facing the Demon King behind Gringotts, Irina nodded gently, and a heavy look flashed in her ice blue eyes. The Demon King level, even in the Macusa where the auras are extremely powerful, is enough to make them be on high alert. And what kind of existence should the Demon King level born from the Goblin family be? Exclamation mark. Is it like the goblins in the lobby of Gringotts in the past, shrewd and cunning, and leading the goblin family, or is it like Voldemort who cut off his soul, and is crazy and enjoys destruction? Exclamation mark. Irina is more inclined to the former. Regardless of the goblins who have been promoted to the Demon King level through alchemy, if they lose their reason, it is equivalent to losing the foundation of proving the Demon King level. The fact that they can become the behind-the-scenes leader of Gringotts, the Wizard Bank, is enough to prove their wisdom. Lin handed Irina the Type 69 rocket launcher and ammunition that Green gave him on Christmas, and he pinned the Desert Eagle on his waist. Soon, night fell, and the bright starry sky hung high above the night sky. After the agreed time with Scrimgeour, Lin and Irina arrived at Diagon Alley with the any portal key. Under the patrol and guard of the auras, the street near Gringotts had become empty, and no wizards could be seen. Lin and Irina strolled to the outside of Gringotts, which was still brightly lit. Through the bronze door of Gringotts, they could see the goblins waiting in the lobby of Gringotts. Gringotts suspended all business, making it impossible for wizards to withdraw money. Hundreds of wizards held protest signs and crowded in the lobby to loudly protest the goblins' decision. Even at night, these wizards had no intention of dispersing. Therefore, the auras who originally planned to hide in the dark had to show up in the name of maintaining order and drive these wizards and people who were blocking Gringotts out of Diagon Alley. From the actions of these auras, these goblins naturally guessed that the Ministry of Magic wanted to deal with them, which made their vigilance much stricter than during the day. Get ready. Lin En held the magic forbidden staff tightly in his right hand. 3, 2, 1, move. As Lin En's voice fell, he activated the magic forbidden staff in his hand. At this moment, invisible fluctuations spread out from the position where Lin En and Irina were, covering the entire lobby of Gringotts. The alchemical array hidden in the alchemical red cannon and the alchemical heavy machine gun lost its effectiveness at this moment, and the constantly running golden lines also dimmed, and the magic power in it completely disappeared. However, the goblins did not seem to notice that the alchemical weapons in front of them were wrong. The magic forbidden power applied to these alchemical weapons suppressed the operation of their alchemical arrays, but from the appearance alone, these alchemical weapons did not change at all. At this time, Lin En and Irina no longer hid their figures, but walked towards the bronze gate of Gringotts openly. After seeing Lin En and Irina, the two goblins standing on both sides of the bronze gate were about to shout loudly to stop them. Bo. Pop. But in the next moment, accompanied by a slight sound, a blood hole appeared between the eyebrows of the two fairies, and their bodies fell down lightly. Lin En held the Desert Eagle in his hand upright in front of him, and blew out the floating smoke. Before coming here, Lin En installed a suitable silencer for this Desert Eagle. The magic forbidden scepter can suppress the power of the alchemical array enchanted for the Desert Eagle, but it cannot suppress the effect of the silencer. The fairies in the lobby did not notice the accident here at the bronze gate until Irina, who crossed the bronze gate, aimed at the row of heavy machine guns on the left, and pulled the trigger of the Type 69 rocket launcher on her shoulder. The 85mm super caliber hollow charge armor piercing rocket, swaying with dazzling flames, flew straight to the 40 heavy machine guns on the far left. A violent explosion rang out, and the fierce flames spread. The powerful explosion wave completely destroyed the 40 alchemical heavy machine guns that had lost their enchantment effects. Countless metal fragments flew away, and even 2 or 3 pieces of metal fragments flew by Lin En and Irina's hair. In addition to those metal fragments, there were also the broken limbs and arms of the 40 goblins who were responsible for operating these alchemical heavy machine guns. The power of the armor-piercing rockets exploded, and the bodies of these goblins were shattered into a bloody mist. The whole lobby of Gringotts was filled with a strong smell of blood. Damn, there are intruders. It's that Rawl, the Demon King level wizard who robbed us. Where is the alchemical red cannon? Fire quickly. The goblins finally realized what was happening, and many of them shouted loudly. Chapter 633, Gringotts 200 Strike. Destroyed pride. These fairies had not yet realized that the alchemical weapons they relied on had long lost their effectiveness under the suppression of the forbidden magic power. They believed that, as long as they could control the alchemical weapons to attack Lin En and Irina, they would be able to repel the 2 invaders. Pop, pop, pop. Lin En's dark red eyes were full of indifference. He gently pulled the trigger of the Desert Eagle, and the life-threatening bullets broke through the air in silence, drilling into the eyebrows of the fairies who were about to ignite the alchemical red cannon without any hindrance, and then drilled out from the back of their heads. The exploding blood mist was like the enchanting red spider lily, announcing splendor and death. On the other side, after Irina loaded new ammunition, she fired at the second row of heavy machine guns. The magnificent explosion and blood intertwined in the air, and the smoke spread, closing the coffin for destruction. At the same time, the remaining fairies behind the remaining 100 heavy machine guns showed fear in their eyes. They pointed their heavy machine guns at Lin En and Irina with trembling hands, and pulled the trigger. However, a faint golden light rose from the feet of Lin En and Irina, intercepting all the flying bullets. The forbidden magic power sealed their magic power, including the magic power flowing in the alchemy array, which made them completely lose the ability to use magic and alchemy within the coverage of the forbidden magic scepter. However, the power of the stars, which comes from the sky, does not belong to the category of magic power. It is a power of another system and the only power that can be unaffected by the suppression of the forbidden magic power. After seeing that all the bullets fired by the alchemy weapons were intercepted by the faint golden light, the fairies all widened their eyes in disbelief. You know, the bullets of the heavy machine guns refined by Master Arnold have the ability to penetrate the armor spell of the Demon King level wizard. Each yellow bullet is engraved with thousands of alchemical arrays with the main attributes of penetration and destruction of magic against the armor spell. The golden light that appeared around Lin En and Irina was so thin that it obviously did not consume much of the opponent's strength, but their bullets had no effect on the golden light. This made the fairies who believed in Master Arnold and these alchemical weapons doubt their lives. Looking at the stunned fairies, Lin En's mouth corners rose slightly. The duration of the magic forbidden scepter was only 1 minute. Even if Irina was loading ammunition throughout the whole process, it would be difficult to destroy all the alchemical heavy machine guns and alchemical red cannons in just 60 seconds. Therefore, Lin En's real trump card was not the heavy weapon that Green gave him as a Christmas gift, but the power of the stars that was not affected by the magic forbidden power. As a Christmas gift, Lin En gave Irina the Zui Heavenly Fire Origin Flame that contained the origin of stars, not the pure origin of stars, and Irina's Zui Cold Star also merged the power of ice power. This made Irina's Zui Cold Star not pure star power, and it would also be suppressed by the forbidden magic power. So, in this small lobby of Gringotts, Lin En, who mastered the pure origin of stars, became the only one who could use extraordinary power. Lin En smiled and turned his right hand, and the endless star power gathered in his palm, turning into a small star the size of a magic cube. The star was suspended and surrounded above Lin En's palm, constantly emitting a very threatening aura. 200 alchemical heavy machine guns, and 1 alchemical red cannon. Do you think you are so arrogant? Lin En said with a chuckle, but his eyes were full of coldness and indifference. Then let me destroy all your pride with a grand fireworks display. As Lin En's voice fell, the star surrounding Lin En's palm suddenly turned into a stream of light and broke through the air. The stream of light first passed through the wreckage of the alchemical heavy machine guns that were blown up by Irina's rockets, and blew the wreckage into pieces with unparalleled power, making a violent explosion. The stream of light transformed by the small star penetrated the first row of alchemical heavy machine guns in an instant, and then turned around in mid-air, and plunged into the second row of alchemical heavy machine guns again. The explosions continued, accompanied by the explosion of blood mist, and the red color dyed the lobby of Gringotts, just like the hanging firecrackers to welcome the spring, bringing a visual and auditory feast full of impact. The stream of light kept shuttling back and forth between the goblins' alchemical heavy machine gun positions. In just 5 breaths, the 200 alchemical heavy machine guns all exploded, turning into a string of exploding firecrackers. Seeing this scene, Irina's eyes seemed to have a gleam of light. She no longer looked at the goblins' heavy machine gun positions, but aimed the Type 69 rocket launcher in her hand at the goblins' alchemical red cannon, and pulled the trigger. The rocket and the star hit the alchemical red cannon almost at the same time, creating the largest explosion in the lobby of Gringotts. The shells that had been loaded into the alchemical red cannon exploded, and even though the alchemical array engraved on the alchemical shells had lost their function, their own power was also impressive. All the goblins within 100 feet of the alchemical red cannon were killed by the explosion. Even Lin En and Irina, who were far away at the entrance of the lobby, could feel a scorching heat wave coming towards them. When the smoke in the lobby cleared, there was no goblin left alive in the Gringotts lobby. Countless metal debris was scattered on the ground, goblin limbs and arms were scattered everywhere, and the entire Gringotts lobby was covered with the blood mist that had exploded, which covered the originally magnificent lobby with a layer of blood, just like a temple dedicated to evil gods. After killing the goblins in the Gringotts lobby, the magic forbidden scepter that covered the entire Gringotts lobby also lost its effect, and the magic power in Lin En and Irina's bodies was fully restored to control. The alchemical weapons that the goblins are proud of have turned into the most brilliant fireworks in Gringotts, and the blazing flames have shattered all their pride. Lin En said softly, and a ball of fire swept through the Gringotts lobby, completely burning the bodies of the goblins. Irina put away her weapon, and she slowly walked to Lin En's side, looking at the place where only a blood-red area remained after the flames burned. No matter what the outcome of this negotiation is, Irina said, Gringotts, or the decline of the goblins, has become a foregone conclusion. Lin, we must prepare for it. Even if Gringotts can be rebuilt, the goblins who died in the battle can be replaced, and the destroyed alchemical weapons can be refined again. How can Gringotts, which was attacked and bloodbathed in public, restore its reputation as the safest place in the world? Exclamation mark. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 634. Someone handed me a pillow when I felt sleepy. In addition, in order to demand compensation, these goblins suspended all business of Gringotts, making it impossible for wizards who deposited money to withdraw money, sowing the seeds of distrust in the hearts of wizards. The loss of reputation is the biggest loss of Gringotts in this failed game. In the future, when people no longer trust Gringotts, and are no longer willing to store gold galleons in Gringotts, Gringotts will exist in name only. At that time, the goblins will lose the power to control finance, and become a tool for minting coins. At this time, Lin and Irina walked through the lobby of Gringotts, and walked into the door leading to the underground vault. Perhaps the goblins trusted the alchemical weapons too much, and even thought that the alchemical weapons in the lobby alone were enough to stop the invasion of all enemies. In the passage leading to the underground vault, Lin and Irina could not see any defensive measures, which was exactly the same as the arrangement when they came to rob Gringotts last time. Just as they were about to take the alchemical minecart and headed towards the depths of Gringotts, a ray of light came from the depths of the passage. It was a gorgeously dressed fairy, riding a minecart made of mithril, and driving towards them quickly. After seeing Lin En and Irina, the gorgeously dressed fairy was obviously stunned for a moment, as if she was in disbelief that a wizard appeared in the passage. Seeing this, Lin En and Irina looked at each other, and saw a smile in each other's eyes. Just when they were about to doze off, Someone brought a pillow. They were worried that there was no fairy to lead them to see the Demon King level fairy behind the scenes, but this guy came in a mithril minecart. So out of the body, Lin En pulled out his wand without hesitation, pointed it at the fairy, and chanted a spell. Even if the gorgeously dressed fairy had a strong willpower, under the suppression of the Demon King level wizard's imperious curse, there was no possibility of regaining control of his body. As the imperious curse hit the goblin, its eyes suddenly became empty, as if covered with a greyish white. Under Lin En's control, it slowly stopped the mithril minecart beside the two of them. "What's your name, and what's your position in Gringotts?" Irina asked first. The location of the Demon King level goblin behind Gringotts might not be known by ordinary goblins, but the goblin's clothes were so gorgeous that it was obviously not an ordinary goblin. If the other party had a higher position in Gringotts, he would probably know more. The gorgeously dressed goblin raised his head dully and answered in a serious tone, "My name is Ol, and I'm the president of Gringotts." Hearing this, Irina's face lit up, and she quickly asked, "Do you know where the Demon King level goblin behind Gringotts lives?" Ol, who was under the control of the imperious curse, had no way to resist. He replied, "Master Arnold lives in the deepest part of the underground vault. My ID card is the only key that can open the door to Master Arnold's residence." At this time, even Lin was a little surprised. Whether their encounter with Ol was a coincidence or something else, it was an indisputable fact that Ol was the only one who could take them to see the Demon King level goblin. Lin ordered lightly, "Take us to see Arnold." Ol stopped talking. After Lin and Irina turned over and entered the mithril minecart, he controlled the mithril minecart to the deepest part of the underground vault. As the mithril minecart sped along, Lin and Irina kept casting confusion spells so that the goblins who passed by them would mistake them for the same kind and not be suspicious. Soon, the two came to the location of the 5 vaults. Even for Gringotts, fire dragons were not easy to get, let alone getting new ones in just a few weeks. So, the place originally guarded by the fire dragon Scarlet was now guarded by 10 goblin guards holding all chemical heavy machine guns. The track that was blown up by Lin and Irina had been repaired by the goblins and even reinforced, and it looked extremely solid. After about 5 minutes, the mithril minecart came to the end of the track, and in front of it was a hard rock wall, and it looked like there was no way to go forward. But at this moment, the identity card on Ol's chest that proved his identity as the president of Gringotts emitted a faint light. As the faint light lit up, Lin En and Irina were surprised to find that the rock wall in front of them gradually became transparent and finally disappeared completely, revealing a deeper and darker passage. After the mithril minecart passed through the rock wall that turned into nothingness, it emitted a silvery white light, illuminating the dark passage that was like the abyss. The track under the mithril minecart seemed to have changed its material. Irina could feel that the track was so strong that it could even withstand the bombardment of Ziwei Hanxing in her normal state. The air around them seemed to become sticky, and the darkness was constantly squeezing towards Lin En and Irina, but was driven away by the light emitted by the mithril minecart. Lin En and Irina could clearly perceive that the darkness was not pure darkness, but a power generated by a combination of magic and alchemy, which could blind the wizard's 5 senses and magic perception. If there were no key on Ol's chest and a special mithril minecart under him, the intruder would be shrouded in darkness the moment he broke into this passage, thus losing his way forward and being trapped here forever. The darkness here can even work on Demon King level wizards. Of course, if the power released by the Demon King level wizard is strong enough to tear apart the darkness here, it can also be unaffected by the darkness. Lin and Irina looked at everything here in amazement. Everything here was something they had never seen when they robbed Gringotts last time. Unexpectedly, there is such a place in the deepest part of Gringotts' underground vault. After about 10 minutes, the mithril minecart finally arrived at the destination. Lin and Irina turned over and got off the minecart and asked Ol to continue to lead the way for them. Soon, they came to a door. This was a simple and low-key door, which was inconsistent with the usual luxury concept of the goblins. "It seems that this is where the demon level fairy is," Irina said softly. When she raised her left hand, the cold wind blew, and the door opened by itself. Chapter 635 We will completely exterminate the fairies. Inside the door was the same darkness as always, as if an endless abyss was stretching out its claws towards them. Looking at the door, Lin and Irina stopped in their tracks. They had forced their way in here as intruders. But on the other side of the door was the residence of the Demon King level goblin. Even if the other party was a goblin, they still had to give him due respect before they had a complete falling out. At this time, someone might ask, Lin and Irina had already killed all the goblins in the lobby of Gringotts, almost destroying the glory of Gringotts, and cast the Imperious Curse to control the president of Gringotts. Doesn't this count as a falling out? Exclamation mark. In fact, for the leader of a race, unless he already had the idea of starting a war and planned to start a war over trivial matters, just like a despicable nation that started a war under the pretext of missing soldier. Otherwise, the leader of a race would not bet the fate of the entire race on a war just because of the casualties of some of his people. Compared to the entire goblin clan, the goblins that died in the Gringotts lobby can only be regarded as a minor incident. Since the guests are here, why don't you come in? A low hoarse voice came from the other side of the dark door. A faint candlelight suddenly ignited on the wall on the other side of the door, dispelling the darkness that seemed to have life, and also illuminating the scene in the secret room. On the other side of the door was a secret room that was neither big nor small, and it was incomparable to the Slytherin secret room that was like a square. This secret room was more like a large warehouse. In addition to a corner of the secret room where many alchemical equipment for assisting alchemy were placed, there were a large number of alchemical weapons piled up in other places. There were a full 100 alchemical red cannons that Lin En and Irina had seen in the Gringotts lobby, and the number of those alchemical heavy machine guns was countless. In addition to these two familiar alchemical weapons, Lin En and Irina could also see many alchemical weapons transformed from muggle thermal weapons. It is no exaggeration to say that any of the alchemical weapons placed in this secret room can cause a bloody storm if you take any of them out to the outside world. After looking around, Lin En and Irina's eyes finally stopped on a fairy who looked extremely old in the middle of the secret room. Judging from the faint magical fluctuations spreading from the other party, this old fairy might be the Master Arnold mentioned by all, that is, the Demon King level fairy. Compared with wizards who are good at using magic to fight, fairies who cannot use magic wands are better at using their magic in alchemy, which makes them less capable of controlling magic than wizards of the same realm. Therefore, even though Arnold has tried his best to restrain his breath, in the magic perception of Lin En and Irina, who are also demon kings, Arnold is like a small sun, dazzling. What should I call you? Lin En asked calmly, Mr. Arnold? Or the goblin leader? It's up to you. Arnold turned slowly and walked towards the alchemy table. He didn't seem to worry that Lin En and Irina would attack him from behind. But, guests, since we are here, should we release my servants? Lin En shook his wand gently and lifted the Imperious Curse on Ol. Soon, Ol's cloudy eyes became clear again, and after seeing the surrounding environment, as well as Lin En and Irina standing not far from Arnold, he immediately understood what happened. Despicable wizard. Ol shouted angrily, how dare you use me to break into Master Arnold's secret room? You deserve to die. Before Lin En and Irina could speak, Arnold, who had walked to the alchemy table, came back to his senses after getting a scroll. He looked at Ol with his calm eyes and said lightly, go out, Ol, I have something to talk to these two guests about. Hearing Arnold's words, Ol's eyes widened, and he subconsciously said, but, they are invading. Go out. Arnold looked at him indifferently and interrupted him. Ol glanced at Lin En and Irina unwillingly, backed out of the secret room, and closed the secret room again. At this time, there were only 3 Demon King level beings in the secret room, Lin En, Irina and Arnold. Arnold asked calmly, why did you two come here to find me, and even use the Imperious Curse to control my servants? I wonder what you are doing. Lin said straight to the point, the magic world is still unstable, and wizards can hardly afford the price of the 3rd Goblin Rebellion. I don't want a new Goblin Rebellion to happen, at least not within 10 years. Seeing Lin's straightforward statement of his purpose, Arnold looked at him in surprise. But soon, Arnold sneered and said, you robbed Gringotts, killed my people, controlled my servants, and destroyed the glory of Gringotts that lasted for hundreds of years. And now, you ask me not to launch a mutiny and take back everything that should belong to the goblins? The magic world is still unstable? It's just an internal fight between you wizards. What does it have to do with us goblins? You don't allow us to start a rebellion, and you don't promise us any benefits. Do you want us to wait for the wizards to stabilize and have the power to deal with us, and then let us fall into the trap? What a joke, Arnold said with a sneer. Even though it was the only goblin in the secret room and facing 2 demon level wizards, it was not afraid at all. Lin also responded with a sneer. Really? But even if the goblins launch a rebellion, do you really think they can succeed? Do you really think that the goblins can defeat wizards and become the masters of the magic world? Yes, I have to admit that with the alchemical weapons made by a demon king like you, the goblins will bring extremely heavy, even irreparable losses to wizards, but that is just a loss after all, Arnold. After the Goblin Rebellion, all the British magic world has to do is recuperate and use decades or even hundreds of years to restore everything. With us Demon King level wizards, the British magic world does not need to worry about the invasion of the magic world of other countries. But what about the goblins? There is a saying in the ancient East, if you don't cut the grass at the root, it will grow again in the spring breeze. We will not give the goblins a chance to make a comeback. We will completely exterminate the goblins and wipe out the goblin clan, just like I did to the giant clan half a year ago. And everything the goblins have suffered is all because of you, Arnold, because you, the goblin leader, made irrational decisions under impulse. Lin said calmly, as if he was talking about everyday things, rather than a matter of genocide. Chapter 636, Just a thief who stole the research results of muggles. Hearing Lin's words, Arnold's expression changed suddenly. Arnold had also heard about what happened to the giants, but the incomplete information Arnold received was that after the giants attacked a powerful wizard, they were exterminated by that wizard. Arnold thought that the destruction of the giants was caused by Voldemort and his Death Eaters. After all, only such evil dark wizards would have such a cruel heart to make a race exterminate and completely cut off the civilization of a race. And a demon level wizard like Dumbledore would choose to let the other party live, even after defeating a race, allowing the other party to survive as a loser. This is also the confidence that Arnold dared to launch the Goblin Rebellion. In Arnold's view, Lin and Irina are the same kind of people as Dumbledore, and they would not do such things as exterminating a race. But now, after learning that it was Lin who caused the destruction of the giants, Arnold could not sit still. In Arnold's original idea, if Lin and Irina were like Dumbledore and would not exterminate a race, then the chips in the hands of goblins and wizards could be said to be equal. The alchemical weapons in Arnold's hands could deal a heavy blow to wizards, making the wizards in the British magic world unable to recover, and civilization regressing for decades or even hundreds of years. The power of Lin and Irina could forcibly suppress the Goblin Rebellion, causing great casualties to the goblins, leaving the goblins only able to survive in the magic world, and no longer able to resist. Goblins and wizards can both bring unbearable trauma to each other, and cause the lives of the people to be destroyed. This is a chip held tightly by both sides. However, if Lin is the culprit who destroyed the giants, then the balance of chips will immediately tilt towards the wizards. Lin would not let the rebels go, he would kill them all, which instantly made the wizards have more bargaining chips than the goblins. If the war broke out, the wizards could completely wipe out the goblins, while the goblins would only bring irreparable damage to the wizards. This made Arnold, who was originally fearless, lose his arrogance. Instead, Lin and Irina could threaten Arnold with war and the survival of the goblins. After figuring out all this, Arnold seemed to have lost all motivation, and the magic fluctuations that unconsciously emanated from his body seemed to have declined a lot. Arnold looked at Lin decadently and asked, "So, wizards, what do you want?" "It's very simple," Lin said in an unquestionable tone. "Restore Gringotts' business and destroy all chemical weapons that are enough to threaten the Demon King." Hearing this, Arnold's face became even uglier. Arnold shook his head and said, "It's no problem to resume Gringotts' business, but it's impossible to destroy these alchemical weapons. They are all my hard work and the result of my research for 100 years. Hearing Arnold's words, Lin showed a sarcastic smile. He glanced at the alchemical weapons in the secret room and sneered, "Heartache, just relying on those alchemical weapons? Haha, you are just a thief who steals the research results of muggles. The reason why these alchemical weapons can threaten the Demon King level wizards is only because of those Demon King level strengthening arrays. What does it have to do with the technology of these alchemical weapons themselves? Lin did not hide his contempt. Lin and Irina knew very well that Arnold's reason for refusing them to destroy the alchemical weapons here was just an excuse. Arnold's real purpose was to preserve the power of the goblins, so that the goblins could still retain the capital to resist. Arnold looked at Lin with his eyes wide open. However, Lin did not intend to give Arnold a chance to refute. He winked at Irina beside him. Irina understood, and her cold voice rang out, "Arnold, since you are unwilling to destroy these alchemical weapons, let me do it for you." Purple star. Irina shouted, and the purple gold cold star appeared and surrounded her. The starry sky was bright outside, and this small purple star also bloomed with purple gold light. Under Irina's control, the purple gold cold light kept changing, and finally turned into the dazzling purple gold moonlight, just like the blow she used to cut Voldemort in half during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. No. Stop it. Seeing this scene, Arnold's eyes were bloodshot, and he finally couldn't help it, and the breath of the devil spread out. Countless alchemical gun barrels extended from behind it, as if the gun barrels were growing on its back. Hundreds of gun barrels were aimed at Irina at the same time. Lin En would not let Arnold succeed. He chuckled and flipped his hands. A purple gold flame ignited out of thin air, covering Arnold's direction with the momentum of extinction. Hundreds of alchemical gun barrels fired at the same time, and a fierce rain of bullets swept in an instant. Lin En couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He could feel that the scorching bullets almost broke through his Zhui Xianhuo's defense line. Under this bright starry sky, this purple gold flame has already erupted with its most real power, but even so, can the bullets shot by those gun barrels still match it? Exclamation mark. The existence of advancing to the Demon King level with alchemy is indeed not to be underestimated. Lin En narrowed his eyes slightly. Even though Arnold had no combat experience and was extremely weak, with the help of these alchemical creations, the power he could unleash was no less than Lin En's. Swish. Lin En swung his magic wand hard, and the black and red forbidden magic fire suddenly ignited. This flame, which originally restrained all magical powers and alchemy, swept towards Arnold again. Under the suppression of this forbidden magic fire, the power of the rain of bullets released by Arnold was weakened by nearly 60%, and the remaining power was not enough to penetrate the defense line of the Zhui Xianhuo. At the same time, Irina injected enough Zhui cold stars into the purple gold moonlight. With the dissipation of the power of ice, the secret room almost turned into an endless glacier, and the cold light flashed between the glaciers, reflecting Irina's beautiful face. "Let this round of moonlight shine through the rivers," Irina shouted in a low voice. The purple gold moonlight suddenly flew out and penetrated into those alchemical weapons with unmatched force, unleashing all its destructive power in an instant. Chapter 637. Arnold's heart collapses. The purple gold moonlight sank into the alchemical weapons piled in the secret room, just like lighting a fire in a flour mill. The terrifying explosion swept across in an instant. The madly expanding heat wave almost annihilated everything in the secret room. Even the walls of the secret room, which had been refined with countless alchemical arrays, were shaking violently under the spread of this terrifying heat wave. Feeling the terrifying power coming towards him, Arnold's face turned as hen. He lightly touched his quaint clothes with his left hand, and a light golden light was released from his clothes. In an instant, Arnold's clothes changed dramatically. The seemingly quaint cloth kept rolling up, and was covered by pieces of prismatic metal sheets. Those prismatic metal sheets released the same powerful power in the face of the sweeping heat, and that power quickly turned into cold low temperatures under Arnold's control. In that split second, Arnold's entire body was covered by the prismatic metal sheet, and turned into an ice sculpture. The heat wave that swept over only melted the ice on the surface of his body, but did not hurt his body. On the other side, Lin En barely moved at all, and the flames that swept over stopped about a foot in front of him as he moved his mind. The 1-foot area around Lin En seemed to have turned into a vacuum zone, where flames could not burn. The flames that swept over all bypassed Lin En and burned away. Irina, who controlled the power of ice, was also not afraid of the flames produced by the explosion of nearly 10,000 all-chemical weapons engraved with Demon King level all-chemical arrays. Even if this explosion contained the Demon King level power of those all-chemical arrays after self-detonation, it was not enough to threaten Irina. The purple star of coldness, which was shining with purple and gold light, was extended into a purple and gold round shield under Irina's control, blocking in front of her, and blocking all the flames that attacked her. The explosion came and went quickly. The secret room was devastated by the explosion, and even the alchemical equipment in the corner of the secret room was burned. After the flames dissipated, Irina waved her hand to disperse the purple gold round shield in front of her. At this time, Arnold also controlled the prismatic metal pieces on his body to absorb the power of the ice and release the ice frozen on his body. Arnold looked at the devastated secret room with a sullen face. This is all his hard work for decades. This is the confidence of the Goblin clan to resist the wizards. But right in front of him, all these all-chemical weapons were burned. Arnold's eyes were full of blood red, and he roared, "Damn human wizards, you destroyed everything I have. Everything I have." As Arnold's voice fell, the prismatic metal pieces on his body continued to extend. Two metal tubes with a diameter of more than 1 meter stretched out from Arnold's back, and terrifying magic fluctuations were lingering in the two metal tubes. Not only that, hundreds of alchemical firearms appeared out of thin air like magic, and under the control of the hundreds of mechanical prostheses that suddenly extended behind Arnold, they poured firepower madly in the direction of Lin En and Irina. A pair of huge mechanical wings unfolded on both sides of Arnold's clothes covered with prismatic metal sheets. The jetting flames made the mechanical wings drive Arnold high up, and then flew rapidly around the position of Lin En and Irina. The endless firepower turned into a rain of bullets, attacking Lin En and Irina from all directions. It's just a tricky way of fighting. Compared with my master, it's like an ant under the bright moon. Lin En looked at the firepower that was constantly pouring down, which was enough to threaten the Demon King level wizard, and sneered. The alchemical array that Nickel Flamel made casually was enough to resist the attacks of thousands of Demon King level wizards. But Arnold, who also advanced to the Demon King level with his alchemical attainments, only engraved his alchemical array on the alchemical weapons invented by muggles, and then used these alchemical weapons to fight. Looking at the pouring firepower, Lin En chuckled, and with his left hand on his waist, a magic forbidden scepter appeared in his palm. This magic forbidden scepter was also made for the Demon King level. It can seal the magic power of the Demon King level wizard, and it can also make the alchemical array made by the Demon King level wizard ineffective. If it was Nickel Flamel, Lin En was not sure that the magic forbidden scepter he made could make the Demon King level wizard, who was already at the peak of the Demon King level wizard, but could not ascend to godhood because of the rules, lose the ability to control magic power. But Lin En was not worried at all about the Demon King level goblin in front of him who couldn't even play magic. Lin En activated the magic forbidden staff in his hand, and the invisible wave instantly covered the entire secret room. After feeling the magic forbidden power that suppressed the magic power in his body, Arnold's expression suddenly changed. He said in disbelief, "An alchemical creation with the power of magic forbidden? Damn, how can such a thing exist? The alchemical array is a product of magic. How can the product of magic create the power of magic forbidden? This is impossible." Under the suppression of the magic forbidden power, the pouring firepower suddenly lost its power and became the most ordinary bullet. The mechanical arms and mechanical wings surrounding Arnold also lost the power provided by the alchemical array, which made Arnold fall to the ground. A ray of golden light suddenly appeared in Lin En's hand. It was a star transformed by the power of the stars. Lin En threw out the sky star in the same way. The sky star that broke through the air instantly turned into a stream of light, shuttling between countless bullets in the air, deflecting them from their original trajectory, and crashing them into scrap metal. Not only that, even the mechanical arms and wings behind Arnold could not escape the destruction of the sky star, and they were all turned into scrap metal under the impact of the sky star. However, facing all the weapons being destroyed by Lin En, Arnold did not care at all. Arnold just felt a forbidden magic power that descended on him absent-mindedly, and muttered in disbelief, "It doesn't exist. This kind of forbidden magic power cannot exist in the alchemy array." The appearance of the forbidden magic scepter almost collapsed Arnold's worldview. The suppressed magic power in his body was violently disordered, and it seemed that it could collapse at any time. Arnold had advanced to the Demon King level, based on his alchemy attainments, but now, the concepts that constituted his alchemy attainments were almost uprooted under the strong impact of the forbidden magic power in front of him. In layman's terms, Arnold's Tau heart collapsed. Chapter 638. If you are not decent, I will help you to be decent. After seeing Arnold holding his head and looking painful, Lin En stopped attacking and looked at Irina. What happened to him? Irina asked in confusion. She had never seen a wizard become like this, because of seeing something. Lin En looked thoughtful and whispered, alchemy array is a product of magic, but it creates forbidden magic power. If I were to become a Demon King level wizard with my alchemy attainments, I'm afraid my worldview would be overturned. Lin En shared his guess with Irina. Arnold's current state is like the reaction of those scientists who insist on materialism after seeing the Headless Knight in real life. Anyone who has been to school knows that human memory is stored in the brain, including human thoughts and emotions, but after seeing the Headless Knight, people only feel surprised and incredible, and will not feel collapsed, or even want to die. That's because they only regard science as a tool to understand the world. When they find that there may be problems with the tool, their first reaction is to replace the tool, rather than despair, because the tool has problems. But those scientists are different. Science is the foundation of their achievements and the foundation of their creation of the world. When they see the Headless Knight, the foundation on which they rely for survival will collapse. That is, memory is stored in the brain, but the Headless Knight has memory and consciousness. When scientists learn that science no longer exists, they will collapse, and even seek death. This is the case with Lin and Arnold today. Lin studied alchemy and used alchemy. He used alchemy as a tool to strengthen himself and develop his power. Even if he found that it was an extremely incredible thing that the alchemy array could produce forbidden magic power, he would only continue to use it naturally and would not delve into the reasons for the existence of this phenomenon. But Arnold is different. Arnold was promoted to the Demon King level wizard with his alchemy attainments. Alchemy is the foundation for his promotion to the Demon King level. The foundation is shaken. If it cannot solve or understand this phenomenon, then the devil level belief that has forged it will collapse, and Arnold will no longer have the power of the devil level. After getting Lin's explanation, Irina nodded thoughtfully. She looked at the struggling Arnold, and there was no pity in her icy blue eyes, but endless coldness. She whispered, in other words, as long as it continues to question, it will fall from the realm and no longer pose a threat to us. Hearing this, Lin nodded, but shook his head. Lin said in a deep voice, no, maybe not only that, the devil level foundation is broken, and the host of these powers, that is, Arnold, may die as a result. Irina frowned slightly. She understood what Lin meant. Arnold can't die yet, at least it can't die now. Even though Arnold, who possesses the realm of the Demon King, is a great threat to them and the magic world, at least this threat is controllable. Arnold's existence can restrain the goblins and prevent the goblin rebellion from breaking out in a short period of time. However, if Arnold dies, the entire British magic world will probably be in chaos. There will be countless goblins under the banner of revenge for Master Arnold, launching rebellions all over the British magic world. Arnold's death will become an excuse for their rebellion, and will also be the beginning of chaos in the British magic world. You know, what Lin and Irina destroyed were only the alchemical weapons stored in the lobby of Gringotts in this secret room, not all the alchemical weapons of the goblins. No one knows how many alchemical weapons are still scattered outside and controlled by the goblins outside Gringotts. This is a time bomb, and the only one who holds the bomb button is Arnold in front of him. Irina frowned and said softly, so, we must save it and not let it die. Lin nodded and walked slowly towards Arnold. Forget everything. Lin pulled out his wand and pointed it at Arnold, who was in pain. A white light flashed, and under Lin's precise control, the forgetfulness spell engulfed the part of Arnold's memory related to the existence of the forbidden magic power, without harming other memories. Under normal circumstances, the memory of the Demon King level cannot be modified, but Arnold, whose beliefs were overturned, was in an extremely fragile state, which gave Lin the opportunity to modify his memory. Under the effect of the forgetfulness spell, Arnold forgot why he was struggling so hard and in so much pain. Arnold still remembered the process of Lin using the star to destroy all of its all-chemical weapons, but it forgot what made its all-chemical weapons lose the power to resist, so that it was so easily destroyed by Lin's star. Similarly, Arnold remembered that his faith collapsed because of a certain existence, and his Demon King level foundation was shaken, and he almost died because of it, but he didn't remember what the existence was that caused him to be like this. Arnold wiped the fine cold sweat on his forehead, looked at Lin En with a complicated expression, and said lightly, "Thank you for saving me, human wizard, but I will not forgive you." Lin En's dark red eyes also looked at Arnold indifferently. He said lightly, "Arnold, I only have 2 requests. First, reopen all the business of Gringotts. Second, take care of your goblins. I don't want to see the Goblin Rebellion." Hearing Lin En's words, Arnold's expression was uncertain. The power accumulated for who knows how many years was burned, and the Goblin clan has lost the capital to resist. Even if Lin En didn't mention this request, the Goblin clan would not be able to launch a rebellion in a short time. As for the suspended business of Gringotts, Arnold smiled bitterly. Lin made this request just to give himself, a Demon King, the last bit of dignity. If he agreed, it would be fine. Even if Gringotts would lose many customers, it would be able to open for business decently and continue to gain a foothold in Diagon Alley. But if he didn't agree, I'm afraid that this terrifying human Demon King level wizard in front of him would help him to be dignified. That is, to rob Gringotts again and take away all of Gringotts' property. If things develop to that point, Gringotts will probably disappear in the long river of history, and the goblins, whether they rebel or not, will lose the qualification to exist in the world. Thinking of this, Arnold looked more and more hunched. He slowly lowered his head and whispered, "I agree." Chapter 639. Our camp is prospering. The next day, the Ministry of Magic and Gringotts simultaneously issued a statement to resume all operations at Gringotts and open the access for wizards to withdraw money. On that morning, thousands of wizards gathered in Diagon Alley, scrambling to take their money away. This small Diagon Alley was instantly overcrowded. After all, this is more than 1/5 of the number of wizards in the British wizarding world. If the Aura office had not sent auras to Diagon Alley in time to maintain order, I'm afraid that Diagon Alley would have been in chaos. Perhaps these wizards who master magic will not suffer casualties due to the stampede, but if they clash, it will evolve into a large-scale magic battle. You know, even in the wizarding world war that once took place, the number of people in a large-scale battle was only a few thousand wizards. In less than a day, more than half of the wizards in the British wizarding world took all their property from Gringotts. Looking at the wizards who left with a large bag of gold galleons, the hearts of these goblins were beating. The goblins behind the counter of Gringotts no longer treated the wizards with respectful smiles. They all looked as if their mothers had died. All the wizards who came to Gringotts were there to withdraw money. Not even one of them chose to deposit money on this day. When the goblins counted the assets of Gringotts overnight, they found that the reserve of gold galleons in Gringotts had shrunk by nearly 2/3. This made the goblins want to rush out in full force and snatch those gold galleons back from the wizards' homes. At this time, in the underground vault of Gringotts, in a relatively spacious square, in addition to the goblin guards who guarded the various important roads of Gringotts and the underground vault, all the goblins belonging to Gringotts gathered here. For a time, the square was crowded with people, and the goblins cast their eyes on a temporary platform at the front of the square. On that platform stood the gorgeously dressed president of Gringotts, and the actual leader of Gringotts who rarely appeared, Arnold. President Master Arnold, what should we do? Gringotts has suffered such a heavy loss, we can't just sit back and do nothing. Master Arnold must make the decision for us. We must make those damn wizards pay the price. Give the order, Master Arnold. As long as you give the order, we will fight those wizards. Launch a holy war to take back the gold galleons. Launch a holy war to take back the gold galleons. These goblins raised their weapons and shouted loudly. Silence. Arnold gently pounded the alchemical cane in his hand on the ground. Do you know why I agreed to open Gringotts' business? These goblins finally calmed down, and they looked at Arnold on the stage eagerly. Only who knew the inside story, looked even uglier after hearing Arnold's words. Why did Arnold agree to open Gringotts' business? Exclamation mark. Ol knew it all too well. After the two Demon King level wizards left, Ol found that Master Arnold's secret room was in ruins, and the tens of thousands of alchemical weapons piled in the secret room were gone. Even Arnold's clothes became extremely tattered, and the mechanical arms and mechanical wings were broken into pieces. There was no doubt that Master Arnold, whom Ol admired so much, was defeated by the two Demon King level wizards, and the alchemical weapons in the secret room were destroyed by the two Demon King level wizards. The goblins were defeated. After Arnold told the goblins the truth in a calm tone, it was like a huge rock falling into boiling water, and the goblins in the square immediately exploded. How is it possible? Even the alchemical creations made by Master Arnold can't repel those two demon level wizards? Impossible. How could Master Arnold lose to two despicable human wizards? Those wizards must have used a trick. Arnold was tricked by mistake. The goblins collapsed and shouted. They were unwilling to admit that the alchemy master they relied on would actually lose to the wizards. If we lose, we lose, Arnold said coldly, but we will not admit defeat. It is true that we goblins are greedy for money, but the greed of those wizards covers all aspects. As long as the wizards have desires, there is no need to worry that the wizards have no place to be used by us. Not only that, everything that the wizards worry about will become their weaknesses. Arnold looked at the goblins below and said loudly. After learning that Arnold did not intend to give up Gringotts, the goblins finally cheered and kept echoing Arnold. A hint of viciousness flashed in Arnold's eyes, and he whispered secretly, wizards will pay the price, and the British magic world will eventually belong to goblins. At the same time, in Avery Castle, Voldemort sat on the main seat with a slender body like a skeleton, and his white and slender fingers tapped the armrests of the chair. On the floor of the living room, the Death Eaters who had joined Voldemort in these days all knelt on the ground, together with the original Death Eaters. After old Barty became the Minister of Magic, issued the death penalty and regulations against the Death Eaters, and listed Voldemort as a hostile demon-level wizard, the number of dark wizards joining the Death Eater camp became fewer and fewer. Admittedly, there were only so many dark wizards in the British magic world, and the dark wizards who wanted to join the Death Eater camp had already joined. But more importantly, the laws and regulations issued by old Barty frightened the remaining dark wizards to a great extent. These dark wizards were caught in the British magic world, and perhaps they were just imprisoned and imprisoned. Dementors were exiled, Azkaban prison was abandoned, and the new wizard prison had not yet been built, which made those dark wizards not afraid of the situation, after being arrested by the Aurors. On the other hand, after joining the Death Eaters, they not only had to face the moody Voldemort, but also had to double their defense against arrest by the Aurors. If they were arrested as Death Eaters, then their only fate would be death. After all, who among them could become a dark wizard without a few lives on their hands? Exclamation mark. Hundreds of Death Eaters crawled on the ground, their faces covered by black wizard robes and silver masks. The Death Eaters can welcome you to join. Voldemort's scarlet snake eyes stared at these kneeling Death Eaters. The Great Dark Lord is very happy, because it means that our camp is thriving. Chapter 640, Obtaining the Power to Negate the World from Outside. The scarlet snake pupils flickered slightly, and Voldemort's cold voice sounded again. Perhaps the cunning Raoul and the despicable Lowell, by hiding their strength, teased the Great Dark Lord, and made the Great Dark Lord fail several times. But you must know that I, the Great Dark Lord, am still invincible. No one can kill the Great Dark Lord. Dumbledore can't, and Raoul and Lowell can't either. The Great Dark Lord will lead you to conquer the magic world, trample those stupid people underfoot, and expel the half-bloods and mudbloods from the magic world. Those with dirty blood are not worthy of being called wizards. Before that, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry will be the first step of our journey. I, the Great Dark Lord, will lead the Death Eaters to capture Hogwarts in 15 months and become the Master of Hogwarts. Voldemort's plain voice sounded in the hall, and many Death Eaters raised their heads in disbelief and looked at their master sitting on the main seat. What? Capture Hogwarts Castle in 15 months? Exclamation mark. According to the time of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, 15 months later, it will be the end of the next school year. Voldemort, who had suffered consecutive defeats in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village and the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. How could he think that he could lead the Death Eaters to capture Hogwarts Castle? Exclamation mark. You know, whether in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village or the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, there was only one Demon King level wizard fighting against Voldemort from beginning to end. Lin repelled Voldemort in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village, and Irina severely injured Voldemort in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Voldemort was not even able to kill a Demon King level wizard of the opponent, let alone capture Hogwarts Castle? Exclamation mark. There are 3 Demon King level wizards in Hogwarts Castle. Even though these Death Eaters are loyal to Voldemort and are willing to give everything for Voldemort, they are still shocked after learning of Voldemort's decision. The most experienced Death Eaters kneeling in the front row suddenly became anxious. At this point, they and Voldemort could be said to share the same fate. They had dedicated everything to Voldemort, and they no longer had any way out like the Malfoys. Therefore, after Voldemort made this almost suicidal decision, they immediately became anxious. McNeil hurriedly said, "Please think twice, Master." Regardless of the fact that Hogwarts Castle has Dumbledore, Rowell and Lowell in charge, even the ancient protective magic of Hogwarts Castle should not be underestimated. Mulciber also advised, "Yes, Master. That cunning Rowell seems to have some kind of power that can seal our magic. Without our magic, we are no match for the ancient protective magic of Hogwarts Castle." With McNeil and Mulciber taking the lead, many Death Eaters began to persuade. Voldemort didn't care that much about the ancient protective magic of Hogwarts Castle mentioned by these Death Eaters. In front of the Demon King level wizards, perhaps those protective magics could delay for a while, but that was just a delay. As for Dumbledore, Rowell and Lowell, the 3 Demon King level wizards, compared with Rowell and Lowell, Dumbledore's weakness is more obvious. Dumbledore is too kind, which makes Dumbledore always take the safety of the magic world so seriously. It only takes chaos and massacres to happen somewhere in the British magic world, and before the massacre ends, let Dumbledore know the situation here. Then, even if Dumbledore realizes that it will be a trap, a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain, he will be fooled. Dumbledore, who is soft-hearted and kind, can't bear to see too many casualties in the magic world. Voldemort can be sure of this. As for Rowell and Lowell, it's not that they don't care about anything. Even if Voldemort cannot find the families of Rowell and Lowell, from the intelligence of the Death Eaters, Rowell and Lowell are the people behind the scenes who secretly support the current Minister of Magic Barty Crouch. In other words, as long as the Death Eaters attack the Ministry of Magic on a large scale, and have enough armed forces to crush the Ministry of Magic, then at least one of Rowell and Lowell will go to the Ministry of Magic to help. And that means that the Demon King level wizard that Voldemort needs to face may only have one person left, or even less than one person. Therefore, the only thing that Voldemort is afraid of may be Lin's terrifying power to ban magic. Ban magic. Voldemort murmured in a low voice after hearing Mulciber's words of persuasion. Lin's power to ban magic, which is beyond Voldemort's cognition, really makes Voldemort feel difficult. If the Demon King level wizard stationed in Hogwarts Castle in the decisive battle to attack Hogwarts Castle is Lin, then Lin's ability to ban magic may very likely cause Voldemort to capsize in the gutter. Thinking of this, Voldemort said slowly, "Rowell's forbidden magic power that came from nowhere is indeed tricky, but it is not impossible to crack." Hearing Voldemort's words, many Death Eaters looked over in surprise. Among the Death Eaters present, many have experienced the suppression of Lin's forbidden magic power, which almost made them feel desperate. They have magic power and can cast magic. They are like gods in front of muggles, but what if they lose this ability to cast spells? Exclamation mark. There is no doubt that they will fall from the altar and become ants in the eyes of other wizards who master magic. But now, their master told them that the master has thought of a way to crack it, which makes them feel extremely happy. All the Death Eaters cast their eyes over, waiting for Voldemort's next words. Voldemort said calmly, "The power of the forbidden magic can only seal magic and everything related to magic. But what if we don't use magic?" Mulciber asked in surprise. "Master, you mean, use the means of muggles?" Voldemort glanced at Mulciber coldly, and with a flick of his left finger, a dark red lightning flashed through the air. The silent and wandless Cruciatus curse instantly penetrated into Mulciber's body, causing Mulciber to wail in pain, kowtow on the ground, and beg for Voldemort's forgiveness. Voldemort said in a cold tone, "Muggles are just some dirty and stupid creatures, and you want to use their means? Haha, the power of the forbidden magic suppresses magic, and suppresses the power of this world. However, the power of the forbidden magic cannot suppress the power from outside the sky, that is, the special power that Lowell integrated into the ice that day. That special power comes from the stars. Everyone, we will obtain the power to deny the world from outside the world." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 641, Their Exclusive Dance Under the Starry Sky. From outside the world, to obtain the power to deny the world! Exclamation mark. These Death Eaters pondered Voldemort's words secretly, and their eyes became brighter. Voldemort chuckled and said, "Roland Lowell have already mastered the way to use the power of the stars. They thought they were hiding, but in the eyes of the great Dark Lord, they are nowhere to hide. Since we know how to crack the forbidden magic power, then there is nothing to fear about Rawl's forbidden magic power. The great Dark Lord will master the power of the stars, and the great Dark Lord will win," Voldemort said loudly. As Voldemort's voice fell, all the Death Eaters cheered. If they can follow Voldemort to learn how to use the power of the stars and apply it to war, then they will not be afraid of Rawl's forbidden magic power, and they will no longer have to experience the despair of being reduced to ants. These Death Eaters have never been so fortunate that they have made the decision to be loyal to Voldemort. The power from the outside world, what a profound and mysterious field it is. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Several weeks have passed since the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, and the students of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry have also welcomed their holidays. The young wizards packed their luggage and boarded the Hogwarts Express, which was destined for King's Cross Station. They looked at the castle in the distance through the window of the Hogwarts Express reluctantly, and drove away with the sound of steam and whistle. The illusion array arranged in the Quidditch field had been completely removed. Even the members of the DA Army, the future army of the British wizarding world designated by Lin, should go home to accompany their families during the holidays instead of staying in Hogwarts Castle. Now, the only students who remain in Hogwarts Castle are Lin and Irina, who have the right to enter and exit Hogwarts Castle freely by means of space teleportation. Lin can directly apparate back to Rao Manor, and Irina can also take the any port key back to her home, so they are not in a hurry to take the Hogwarts Express. After all, the speed of the Hogwarts Express is obvious to all. The train they took at noon might not arrive at King's Cross Station until the evening. Rather than wasting most of the day on a boring journey, they would rather spend their time with each other. By the Black Lake, the two little people leaned on each other. "Where are you going on vacation?" Irina tilted her head, and a touch of attachment flashed in her ice blue eyes. In the past year, she and he had to face too many things, so many that they had to be on their toes to deal with emergencies that might happen at any time. Even the resurrection of Voldemort and Umbridge's move into Hogwarts Castle were within their plans. But after these two unstable factors wandered in their lives, the pressure that followed made it difficult for them to breathe. Even after the Battle of the Department of Mysteries ended, Umbridge died, and Voldemort retreated, they did not relax at all. Expelling the Dementors, saving Astoria, suppressing the goblins, these things that followed one after another consumed a lot of their minds. Until this day, Hogwarts welcomed a long-awaited holiday, and the British wizarding world also ushered in a brief peace. And under this morning sun, she and he finally had the opportunity to relax their tense nerves and soothe their bodies. Looking at Lin En's profile, Irina couldn't help but feel as if she was in another world. Even though she and he both had their own past lives, in this life, they were only 15 or 16 years old, children in adolescence. But they have already shouldered everything in the British wizarding world. Is that really their original intention? Go to the French magic world and learn from my teacher. Lin En also tilted his head, his dark red eyes facing the ice blue eyes, and he gently scratched Irina's nose. What are you thinking about? Even though Lin En has already been promoted to a Demon King level wizard and has a power far superior to his teacher, he still has a lot to learn from Green in magic and alchemy. Only by improving yourself in all aspects and making up for your shortcomings can you make your future path smoother. For some reason, Irina's mood suddenly became low. She whispered, I'm thinking, is everything we do really meaningful? Everything we do, is it really not deviating from our original intention? Lin En stroked her snow white hair, and his voice sounded like a spring breeze. So, what is our original intention? My Irina, you won't forget our original intention, right? Irina raised her head, and her ice blue eyes became brighter. Will she forget? No, of course not. On the lawn with the breeze blowing, she leaned against the side of her beloved boy and made a promise. There seemed to be waves in Irina's eyes, and she repeated softly, Lin En, when everything in the magic world is over, let's find a place with no one and beautiful scenery to settle down, okay? Lin En smiled, and he nodded gently and responded, okay. When everything in the magic world is over, when no one can disturb their lives. Lin En looked at the girl in front of him. He no longer hesitated and kissed her gently. The girl's eyebrows trembled and her pretty face was stained with a little blush. She slowly closed her eyes and used her body's instinct to cater to the boy's affection. I don't know how long it took, and the lips of the two people who were pressed together slowly separated. A strand of crystal silk thread slowly fell down, fell into the gravel, and spread out. Irina, Lin En suddenly said, do you remember the Christmas ball last year? Irina nodded gently. Of course she would not forget the Christmas ball last year. He invited her to be his dance partner, his lifelong dance partner, and that was when they confirmed their relationship. Remember? Of course I remember, Irina said softly. Then, Lin En smiled at her. Tonight, when the stars are shining, in the middle of the Black Lake, let's have another dance that belongs only to the two of us. How about it? Hearing Lin En's words, Irina's eyes gradually brightened, and her tone gradually became excited. Dancing under the moon, with the stars as the mirror? Okay, Lin En, I'm looking forward to it. The dark red and ice blue eyes were almost inseparable from each other. At some point, the two little people hugged each other tightly by the Black Lake, as if they wanted to completely merge each other into their bodies. Chapter 642, Moonlit Night Dance. The sun gradually sank to the west. The setting sun in the sky was like blood. The clouds were dyed orange. The blue in the sky gradually faded, and the night fell quietly. Above the night sky, the stars twinkled in the night sky like countless tiny diamonds, emitting a soft light. Under this clear and moonlit night, the Black Lake seemed particularly quiet. The surface of the Black Lake seemed like a huge mirror, shining with a faint silver light under the moonlight. From time to time, night birds flew across the lake, drawing a few elegant arcs, breaking the mirror of the night, and quickly blending into the quiet night. Finally, when the moon was hanging at the highest point, two small figures appeared on both sides of the Black Lake. Lin En stopped at one side of the Black Lake, his dark red eyes flickering slightly, staring at the small figure in the distance. Under the gaze of countless stars, Lin En looked extremely dazzling. The dress he wore was not the fire phoenix from last year's Christmas ball, but a dress made by combining alchemy, star power and Ziwi heavenly fire. According to Western tradition, especially the tradition of the pure-blooded nobles in the Western magic world, the dresses at the Christmas ball are disposable. If a dress worn once is worn at a formal ball, it is disrespectful to the dance partner. Even though Lin En and Irina did not have such a rule, Lin En did not mind treating this ball that was arranged on a whim with the highest standards. The dress worn by Lin En at this moment was mainly golden in color. The golden silk thread used to refine the alchemy array became the silk thread for weaving this dress, while the invincible Ziwi heavenly fire turned into purple lines on the dress. In addition to the purple gold color, there were also strands of red lines quietly appearing on the edge of the dress, which added the finishing touch to the dress. A golden halo emanated from the dress, enveloping Lin En's figure, making Lin En look extremely mysterious. That was the power of the Star Force. The Star Force turned into the special effect of the dress, raising Lin En's temperament a little. Looking at the girl on the other side of the black lake, Lin En's mouth curled up slightly and took a firm step forward. The imagined scene of Lin En falling into the water did not appear. The golden thread that was supposed to be used to refine the alchemy array appeared out of thin air under Lin En's feet as Lin En's mind moved. The endless golden thread was woven quickly under Lin En's feet, and it turned out to be a golden bridge woven with this golden thread. Lin En's steps were so firm. He walked towards the center of the black lake step by step, and the golden thread on his feet was woven into a bridge for Lin En to pass through, and continued to extend to the center of the black lake with Lin En's steps. At the same time as Lin En was moving, Irina on the other side of the black lake also took her own steps. A glimmer of cold light bloomed under Irina's feet. The blooming ice crystals followed closely. The moment before Irina's feet landed on the water, her foothold was turned into ice, allowing her to walk smoothly to the center of the black lake. Looking from the sky above the black lake, golden and icy blue figures stepped out from both sides of the black lake at the same time, slowly but firmly walking towards each other. They will meet in the center of the black lake, and the center of the black lake will be their stage. Soon, under the witness of the stars, they met in the center of the black lake. Lin En and Irina stomped their feet lightly at the same time. As their feet stomped on the lake, golden silk threads and ice spread from their soles, extending in all directions. The icy blue ice completely froze the lake water under their feet, and even the lake water several meters deep turned into eternal ice. After the ice froze the lake water, the ice with a lower density than the lake water was slowly lifted up by the lake water under the action of buoyancy, and the position of Lin En and Irina also rose by about 1 meter. The extended ice seemed to turn into a stage, and there were sharp ice crystal guardrails on the edge of the stage. The guardrails, which were both beautiful and practical, made the stage made of ice more beautiful. At the same time, golden silk threads slowly climbed up the stage condensed by ice, and endless golden silk threads drilled into the ice, reinforcing the ice again and again. There were more golden silk threads emerging on the ground of the stage. They seemed to have no effect, but formed beautiful lines, making the stage in the center of the black lake more sacred and gorgeous. Until this moment, Lin En raised his head and looked at the girl's face. At the same time as Lin En raised his head, Irina happened to control the ice to change into the shape she liked, and she also raised her head and looked at the boy not far away. The moment he saw Irina, Lin En couldn't help but be stunned. Irina was wearing a snow-white dress. The dress, which was transformed by the power of ice, was covered with beautiful ice blue patterns. These ice blue patterns decorated the snow-white dress beautifully. The black silk enveloped her chest, her neck and her arms, making her look sacred and solemn. Just like Lin En's dress, the halo transformed by the power of the stars slowly enveloped Irina, making it difficult for people in the distance to see clearly, making Irina look elegant and mysterious. Not only that, Irina also had a translucent veil on her head. The veil, as clean as snow, covered Irina's long hair. Under the veil, the black hair accessories made her look as clean and elegant as an nun under the moon, and even gave people a sense of inviolability. On the snow-like veil, there were dozens of golden stars the size of a fingernail as decorations of the veil, fluttering in the wind. They were small stars formed by the compressed star power. Under the influence of the purple star, the golden star not only shone with golden light, but also had a faint icy sheen flashing from its surface, making it even more gorgeous. Irina leaned sideways, staring at her beloved boy in front of her. Her ice blue eyes seemed to contain stars all over the sky. In the center of the stage where ice blue and gold intertwined, they gathered together, holding each other's bodies and dancing gracefully under the night. The dark red and ice blue eyes faced each other, never leaving each other, and the dances were perfectly performed under the starry sky with the coordination of their body and mind. The beautiful and gorgeous dance steps, witnessed by the stars, were so holy and solemn, as if they were solemnly swearing some kind of oath of a lifetime. They clearly didn't speak, but all the words they wanted to say were already presented in their eyes looking at each other. Chapter 643, Competition, the alchemy level of the Weir Light Winds. The next day, early in the morning, when the ball that belonged only to the two of them ended, the sky was already light. They did not plan to stay in Hogwarts Castle any longer. After saying goodbye to Dumbledore, they set off separately. the growth of Voldemort and the Death Eaters, the threat of Goblin Rebellion, and the research of the Mechanical Army of the American Magical Congress from Nicholas Flamel gave Lin a great sense of urgency. If there is not enough power, then any one of Voldemort, goblins and the American Magical Congress may completely subvert the British magic world, not to mention that these three hidden dangers may erupt at the same time. Last night's indulgence was already the biggest allowance Lin gave himself. Lin did not return to the Roll Manor, but took the random door key directly to the French magic world and came to Green's residence. After knocking on Green's door, in Green's house, in addition to Green, Lin also saw two figures that surprised him a little, but were reasonable. Hey. Long time no see, Lin, or rather, our senior brother. I heard that you killed Umbridge? That's so cool, but we were already learning alchemy at that time, and couldn't witness that scene. The two people who appeared in Green's house were the Weird Light Twins who were learning from their master. Fred and George greeted Lin happily, after seeing him at the door. Lin walked in with a smile and clapped his hands with a Weird Light Twins one by one. He chuckled and said, "Senior brother? This title is good, but I still prefer you to call me Lin." At this time, Green also walked over. After seeing Lin walking into his house, he was not surprised at all. Green smiled and asked, "I heard that you used the gift I gave you when you suppressed those goblins. How was it? Was it useful?" When Lin heard about the Christmas gift that Green gave him, he felt a little uncomfortable between his eyebrows. He rubbed his brows and said with a wry smile, "Time is tight. I didn't have time to enchant it, but it's pretty useful." After getting Lin's affirmative answer, Green said with a beaming face, "It's useful. Wait until next Christmas, teacher. I will definitely get you one." According to the words of the two Wheel-Eye guys, it's a great thing. For some reason, it seems that after Fred and George came here, Lin felt that Green's style suddenly changed. Is the Weird Light Twin so contagious? Even his strict teacher Green has become funny? Exclamation mark. Fortunately for Lin, Green did not continue like this, but after joking, he returned to his original appearance. I only heard Green smile and say, "During the days when you were away, Fred and George have made considerable progress in their attainments in alchemy. Even compared with you, the gap is probably not far. It just so happens that you are here too. Why not take this opportunity to let you exchange alchemy?" Green suggested. Hearing Green's words, before Lin En could say anything, Fred and George began to wail loudly. "Stop, teacher, you want us to die?" "Yes, Lin En is a Demon King level wizard. He can kill us with just one finger, so why would he need alchemy?" Fred and George said in unison. They seemed to be trying their best to avoid this competition, but their expectant eyes betrayed them. It seemed that the two people who had made rapid progress in alchemy had been looking forward to this competition for a long time. Lin En smiled helplessly and nodded. "Okay." Green said, "What Fred and George said makes some sense. Lin En, you are not allowed to use the power of the Demon King level. You can only use the magic power below the Demon King level to refine the alchemy array, and all abilities other than alchemy are not allowed to be used." Lin En nodded again. The restrictions given by Green were not excessive. "If we don't do this, then as Fred and George said, he, who has the power of a Demon King, can kill the opponent with just one finger. How can we talk about fair competition?" Exclamation mark. Green tapped his wand lightly on the door handle of the bedroom and motioned Lin, Fred and George to hold his arm. In the blink of an eye, just like 4 years ago, Lin came to the training space made of silver metal on all sides. Before announcing the start of the competition, Green thought of something and reminded, "By the way, don't use the alchemy array that uses the power of forbidden magic. The power of forbidden magic is too overbearing, and it is difficult to reflect your level of alchemy. Okay, let's start." Before Green's voice fell, Fred waved his wand without martial ethics, and thousands of golden threads intertwined under his feet to form alchemy arrays. George also released a large number of golden threads. What is incredible is that Fred and George are obviously two people, but they are like one soul controlling two bodies at the same time, and their tacit understanding has reached a terrifying level. The golden threads they released were able to interweave perfectly and form a seamless alchemical array. If it was just one of Fred and George, they could only maintain one or two alchemical arrays at the same time for combat. However, when their alchemy was used, the number of alchemical arrays that appeared and surrounded Fred and George reached 5. Looking at Fred and George refining alchemical arrays, Lin En was not surprised. He also waved his magic wand. Without using the power of the Demon King, Lin En also refined 5 alchemical arrays. Both sides activated the alchemical arrays surrounding themselves at almost the same time. Thousands of golden beams shot towards each other from 2 directions. The endless golden beams were like a meteor shower covering the sky, constantly interweaving and exploding in the air. More golden beams pierced through the space and arrived in front of the other party in an instant. Facing the golden beams coming straight at his face, Lin En did not change his expression. He still smiled and gently shook the magic wand in his hand. More golden threads spewed out, and in a short moment, they formed a defensive alchemical array standing in front of him. The golden light shield quickly extended, almost completely isolating the entire space in front of Lin En. The countless golden light beams bombarded the golden light shield, but only splashed ripples. Chapter 644. The moves taught by a master are impossible to break. Lin smiled and looked at Fred and George in the distance, expecting them to deal with these golden beams. Fred and George looked at each other, and more golden threads spurted out from the top of their wands, interweaving in front of them, turning into a defensive alchemical array, extending a golden light shield exactly like Lin's. These golden light shields perfectly blocked all the attacks of the golden beams, and waves of ripples appeared on the surface of the light shield. Unexpectedly, 5 alchemical arrays were not the limit of the Weir light winds. Under the premise that Lin did not use the power of the Demon King, the upper limit of the alchemical array that Fred and George jointly refined was probably not less than Lin's. Just as Lin was controlling the golden light shield to resist the attacks of those beams, he seemed to have a sense and his body slightly turned to the side. A water blade passed by his side dangerously. If Lin had not dodged in time, I'm afraid that this water blade would have hit his back firmly. Lin En turned his head and found that at some point, a blue alchemy array had formed not far behind him, and the water blade that attacked him was imitated by this blue alchemy array. After seeing this blue alchemy array, Lin En's eyes could not help but show some excitement and a stronger fighting spirit. He clearly remembered that when he accepted Green's test 3 years ago, Green had refined this alchemy array. And now, when he saw this alchemy array again, the passion he felt when he first came into contact with alchemy seemed to be ignited in his body again. Without using the power of the Demon King, Lin En might not be able to use alchemy to defeat the Weir light winds. This is why he can feel the familiar pressure from the Weir light winds alchemy array and transform the pressure into a strong fighting spirit. Lin En raised his left hand, and the golden light shield suddenly extended, covering Lin En's back and resisting the attack of the blue alchemy array. At the same time, Lin waved his right hand holding the magic wand again. A dark red alchemy array suddenly formed behind the Weir light winds. The dark red alchemy array seemed to be motionless, and no magic fluctuations escaped from it. Then, several invisible blades shot out from the dark red alchemy array. They were the God's Edge shadowless curse stored in the dark red alchemy array. The dark red alchemy array was already extremely concealed, and the spells stored in it released did not make any sound. In addition, the God's Edge shadowless curse itself was silent, which made the Weir light winds unable to detect the situation behind them. However, when they saw Lin in the distance controlling the golden light shield to cover their backs, to resist the water blade attack of the azure alchemy array they had refined, Fred and George suddenly had an idea. Without realizing the attack behind them, they imitated Lin's actions and extended the golden light shield in front of them to their backs to protect their backs. When the golden shield was extended and closed behind them, the sharp shadowless blades from the dark red alchemy array also arrived. The violent magic fluctuations burst out behind Fred and George, and the extremely sharp shadowless blades actually left an indelible black gully on the golden shield. After sensing the attack behind them, Fred and George both broke out in a cold sweat. You know, if they hadn't subconsciously followed Lin's approach and extended the light shield formed by the defensive alchemy array in front of them to their backs, they would probably have been hit by the shadowless blades and lost their ability to fight. After this attack, Fred and George seemed to be more vigilant. Fred and George no longer faced Lin at the same time, but fought back to back, with George guarding against the attack from behind. Fred and George had a very high degree of tacit understanding. Even though they were back to back and couldn't see what the other saw, they still waved their wands and refined the alchemy array perfectly. It was as if they were only one person from beginning to end. This competition lasted for more than 3 hours. As a Demon King level wizard, even if Lin En did not use the power of the Demon King level, his own magic reserve was almost infinite because of his realm. Even after Lin En suppressed his own power, Fred and George showed that their alchemy level was not weaker than Lin En, but their magic reserve was limited. After 3 hours of continuous fighting, their magic reserve was almost exhausted. Fred and George looked at Lin En in despair, who was refining an alchemy array in the distance, and was almost identical to their own. No one could defeat the other. It was not that they did not want to fight with all their strength. In fact, even if they used all their strength to refine the alchemy array, Lin En could also replicate the same existence. They were all taught by the same master, and there was no way to break the trick. It was not until Fred and George's magic reserves were completely exhausted and the alchemy array around them dissipated that Green called a halt. How is it, Lin En? Have they made progress in the past few months? Green looked at Lin En teasingly. Lin En wiped the non-existent sweat from his forehead and said helplessly, regardless of their level of alchemical creation, just the use of alchemy in battle, they may not be inferior to me. At this time, Fred and George also came over. Even though they looked a little weak due to the exhaustion of magic power, they were still very happy about this evenly matched battle. Fred said with a beaming face, "It's different with a teacher. I feel that the knowledge we have learned in the past 6 months is equivalent to the results of the previous 4 years of self-study." George nodded in agreement and said, "Yes, in the past, we couldn't imagine that we could persist in the alchemy competition with you for so long." Looking at the weird light winds in front of him, Lin En was sincerely happy for their progress in alchemy. Even though Fred and George's alchemy attainments were about to catch up with him in just 6 months, Lin En was not dissatisfied at all. After all, wasn't it Fred and George's guidance that allowed him to come into contact with alchemy? Exclamation mark. Without Fred and George, Lin would not have been able to learn alchemy, and without Lin, Fred and George would not have been able to learn from Green and improve their alchemy skills. Lin's current status in alchemy and the Weird Light Winds learning from Green are both a result of mutual achievement. Chapter 645 Theory of the Origin of Wizards. After Lin and the Weird Light Winds had almost finished their chat, Green interrupted them at the right time and said, "Okay, Lin, find a room to put your things down first. We will start your teaching from tomorrow." Lin asked curiously, "Teacher, what will I learn tomorrow?" "The same as Fred and George." Green shook his head. He looked at Fred and George and said with a smile, "No, Fred and George chose a completely different path from you. They chose pure alchemy. And you, Lin, I will teach you as much knowledge as possible so that your knowledge covers more areas. Of course, this knowledge is also related to alchemy." Green said so. Did Fred and George choose pure alchemy? Lin looked at the two companions beside him thoughtfully. If Fred and George planned to advance to the Demon King level wizard with their alchemy attainments, then pure alchemy would indeed be their best choice. At this time, someone will ask, Green himself has not been able to advance to the level of Demon King wizard with his alchemy attainments, so how can Fred and George, Green's disciples, do it? Exclamation mark. In fact, Green's alchemy attainments had reached the level of Quasi-Demon King decades ago, and he was only one step away from being promoted to the level of Demon King Wizard with his alchemy attainments. But the death of Green's Beiguang made Green disheartened and decadent for decades, and even because of his inner demons, he did not make any progress in his alchemy attainments. This completely cut off Green's possibility of advancing to the level of Demon King. But Fred and George are different. There is no obstacle on their way forward, even if their alchemy attainments have reached a bottleneck, and they cannot rely on the knowledge taught by Green to continue to improve. But don't forget that in addition to Green, Fred and George also have Nicholas Flamel, their master. With this giant standing at the top of the alchemy field to guide them, do they still need to worry that they can't stand on the shoulders of the giant and can't be promoted to the Demon King level wizard? Exclamation mark. So, Green looked at Lin En and said, "This year you will learn blood fusion magic and the combination of blood fusion magic and alchemy. Come to my room on time at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning." Hearing Green's words, Lin En was refreshed, and he immediately agreed. The next morning, Lin En knocked on Green's door on time. Very good, come in, Lin En. I have prepared the materials and equipment you need to learn blood fusion magic. Green opened the door and said to Lin En. Lin En walked into Green's room and found that the room was transformed into 3 areas. Among them, the area on the left was filled with alchemy tables and other alchemy equipment. In the middle area was a table on which crucibles, alcohol lamps and other materials needed to brew potions could be seen. The area on the right was filled with beds and other daily necessities. After Green used the shrinking spell to shrink these things, he placed them in the corner of the room to make enough space for the room. After closing the door, Green introduced to Lin En, before teaching you the magic of blood fusion, you must first understand what blood fusion is and why blood fusion is necessary. When it comes to blood fusion, the topic we can't avoid is, what is the origin of wizards? Some people believe that wizards have existed since ancient times, and magic is a gift from God to wizards. This is a God-given theory. Some people also believe that wizards are the offspring of humans and magical animals, and the wizard's magic also comes from the magical talents in the blood of magical animals, just like half-blood Velar, half-blood giants, and half-blood goblins. The wizard's magic comes from magical animals. This is the magical animal theory. There are many people who believe that today's wizards are the descendants of the first wizard ancestor who was born naturally in ancient times. All wizards have the blood of that wizard ancestor flowing in their veins. This is the wizard ancestor theory. Among these 3 speculations, the theory of magical beasts is resisted by many wizards, especially those pure-blood wizards. Most pure-blood wizards discriminate against the existence of half-bloods, and even despise and persecute wizards who are half-blood with magical beasts, such as half-blood Velar and half-blood giants. If the origin of wizards is really the theory of magical beasts, then the actions of those pure-blood wizards would be tantamount to slapping themselves in the face, which is tantamount to betraying their teachers and ancestors, and the theory of pure-blood supremacy would become a joke. Therefore, those pure-blood wizards suppress this theory and firmly oppose it. Those pure-blood wizards are more willing to believe in the theory of witch ancestors. Only the theory of witch ancestors proves the noble bloodline of wizards. It is also the origin of those extreme pure-blood ideas. They believe that pure blood is noble and even look for mates within the family. Of course, according to Muggle biology, this method will not only fail to keep these pure blood families so-called purity and continue forever, but will turn all the descendants of those pure blood families into fools, and their inheritance will be cut off one day, just like the black family in your British wizarding world, which now has only one heir. However, the most widely accepted and most likely theory among wizards is the God-given theory. Even though the existence of God is not realistic in the God-given theory, this theory is the most realistic. Because, in addition to the half-blood wizards born from pure-blood wizards and muggles, those muggles whose ancestors have never had wizards will also have little wizards who awaken their magical talents. And among these 3 theories of wizard origins, only the God-given theory conforms to this phenomenon. But no matter what the God-given theory, the magical beast theory, and the wizard ancestor theory are, the blood fusion magic we are going to learn today is linked to the magical beast theory. The so-called blood fusion is to allow the wizard to fuse his blood with that of a magical beast with a powerful magical talent or a special talent. This is a blood fusion method other than mating and giving birth. It allows wizards to obtain certain unique talents of magical animals without having any relationship with them, such as the fire control talent of a dragon, the charm talent of a doll, the alchemy talent of a fairy, etc. Green said. Listening to Green's explanation of the origin of wizards, Lin En couldn't help but feel excited. After learning the specific results of blood fusion, Lin En was even more surprised. If every wizard can obtain the talents of magical animals through blood fusion, then wouldn't all alchemists choose to obtain the alchemy talent of fairies to improve themselves? Exclamation mark. Chapter 646, Random Inheritance of Talents and Mixed Spiritual Roots. Thinking of this, Lin En expressed his doubts. After learning about Lin En's confusion, Green smiled and continued, of course, blood fusion magic is not as simple as imagined, and fusing the blood of magical animals and stealing the blood talents of magical animals are not easy things. Blood fusion has 3 hard requirements for the wizard himself. First, the wizard's magic power must be much stronger than the magical animal with which the blood is fused. For example, if a wizard wants to fuse the blood talent of a fire dragon, then the wizard himself must have magic level that is enough to crush the fire dragon. Otherwise, the wizard will not be able to withstand the impact of the powerful blood. At the least, the meridians will be broken, and at the worst, the body will explode and die. Therefore, the most important point of blood fusion magic is that the wizard must have self-knowledge. Second, the wizard must have a certain talent foundation for the corresponding talent he wants to fuse. For example, if a wizard wants to fuse the fire control talent of a fire dragon, he must have a certain affinity for fire, and if an alchemist wants to fuse the alchemy talent of a fairy, he must have a certain alchemy foundation himself. Otherwise, after fusing blood talents, it would be difficult for wizards to inherit the desired talents, and instead they would inherit negative talents, such as the short stature and ugliness of a goblin, or the low intelligence of a giant, Green said. Lin En asked, inheriting negative talents? Aren't the talents that can be fused by blood fusion magic fixed? Green said lightly, of course, just like heredity is random. When a wizard casts blood fusion magic and merges with the blood of magical animals, it is equivalent to a genetic process. In this process, the wizard may inherit any talents possessed by the fusion object. If the fusion object chosen is fairy blood, then the wizard may inherit the fairy's alchemical talent and handicraft talent, and may also inherit the fairy's shortness, ugliness, and greed. If the fusion object chosen is a giant, then the wizard may inherit the giant's high physical resistance and high magic resistance, and may also inherit the giant's fatness and stupidity. And the second hard requirement of blood fusion comes from this. Suppose you want to fuse the blood of a fairy, then if your own alchemical talent is high enough, then you will most likely be able to inherit the fairy's alchemical talent. This is a question of compatibility. The higher the degree of compatibility, the greater the probability of inheriting the corresponding blood talent, said Green. Lin En nodded, not quite understanding, and asked, I understand. Then, what about the third hard requirement? Green continued, you should be very clear about the practice process of an imagus, right? The third hard requirement of blood fusion magic is that the spells, potions, and alchemy arrays required to perform blood fusion magic must be made by the wizard who receives the blood fusion magic. The process of blood fusion is similar to that of an imagus. The wizard needs to refine the blood fusion potion, and then give the blood fusion potion the corresponding alchemy array. Finally, while taking the potion, perform blood fusion magic to complete the final blood fusion. Green explained the 3 steps of blood fusion. An imagus? Lin En nodded thoughtfully. As early as 2 years ago, Lin En and Irina practiced an imagus together, and became an imagus after a rainy night. Like their physical patronus forms, Lin's animagus form is a snow wolf king, while Irina's animagus form is a small and exquisite snow fox. According to Green, the process of learning blood fusion magic is indeed very similar to the process of practicing animagus, except that blood fusion magic also needs to be supplemented by alchemy. The steps of the two are almost the same. Blood fusion magic requires brewing blood fusion potion, and animagus also needs to use various materials to make the blood red potion. Blood fusion magic requires chanting spells, and animagus also needs to chant spells every sunrise. After having animagus to draw inferences from one instance, Lin's understanding of blood fusion magic has become much easier. In addition to the 3 hard requirements, Green looked at Lin and said, blood fusion magic has a special limitation. That is, a wizard can only fuse the blood talent of one magical animal in his lifetime. Lin nodded slightly. He was not surprised by this limitation. If a wizard fuses the blood talent of a magical animal, then this is almost pure enhancement. This wizard can obtain power that does not belong to him, and get a higher upper limit. But if a wizard is not satisfied with the blood talent of a magical animal, and forcibly performs blood fusion magic to fuse the blood talents of multiple magical animals, then his talents will become extremely messy. He may master the fire control talent of a fire dragon, the alchemy talent of a fairy, the charm talent of a charmed baby, the treasure hunting talent of a sniff, etc. But his magic power is limited, and his energy is even more limited. He cannot have high enough attainments in so many fields at the same time. His talents are evenly distributed on all talents, which makes him enjoy every talent equally, but each talent is not high. Just like in the immortal cultivation novels, the cultivator with Thunder Spirit Root is a genius, and the cultivator with both Thunder Spirit Root and Fire Spirit Root is also a genius. However, the cultivator with 5 spirit roots is a waste material among 10,000. Yes, waste material. The reason why the 5 spiritual roots are called mixed spiritual roots is that their talents are too mixed and cannot be concentrated on one item, so that the monks cannot reach the peak of their attainments in one item. The same is true for blood fusion. Too much is as bad as too little. If a wizard fuses one blood talent, it will be improved, but if he fuses too much, it will weaken himself. Green said, so, I will separate the 3 steps of blood fusion magic and teach them to you, instead of letting you complete the blood fusion magic. Green brought Lin En to the table, where the crucible and alcohol lamp were placed. Lin En had already noticed the potion materials on this table. Most of these potion materials, that have not been processed, are relatively mild materials. Even if there are several strong materials, these strong materials are boiled in the crucible, and most of the strong materials can offset each other. It seems that the existence of blood fusion potions is mainly to allow the wizard's body to better withstand the blood of magical animals, and reduce the possibility of rejection reactions. After all, blood fusion magic is not a simple blood injection or blood transfusion, but to fuse the blood of the two, including genes. Chapter 647, Blood Fusion Potion of the Black Dragon of the Hexidalian Islands. Next, Green's guidance made Lin En feel as if he was back in the potion class at Hogwarts Castle. Of course, Green was not as sharp-tongued as Professor Snape, but patiently taught Lin En the formula and brewing techniques of the blood fusion potion. The blood fusion potion was much more difficult than the polyjuice potion, and its brewing period was as long as 2 weeks, that is, half a month. Therefore, Green guided Lin En to handle all the potion materials in the correct way and added them to the crucible in the correct proportion. After lighting the alcohol lamp, he ended the teaching for the day. The brewing of the blood fusion potion lasted for half a month, and the most difficult part was at the beginning and when it was about to be completed. In the middle part of the brewing, Lin En only needed to add the specified materials to the blood fusion potion every other day, without having to wait by the crucible all the time. So Green drove Lin En out of his room, and before that, Green did something that Lin En was very familiar with. That was to throw a thick book recording the blood fusion magic to Lin En, and let Lin En complete it by himself within 5 days. Lin looked at the nearly 1-foot thick book on blood fusion magic in his hand, and the corners of his mouth twitched wildly. This is really Green's usual style. The familiar feeling is back. It only took Green one morning to tell Lin about the basic theory of blood fusion magic and the method of brewing blood fusion potions, which also meant that Lin could study the book in his room in the afternoon and evening. After seeing Lin off, Green enjoyed a leisurely lunch and then went to instruct Fred and George in alchemy. Unlike Lin, who used alchemy to refine various functional alchemy creations, Fred and George's main direction was to apply alchemy to combat. Therefore, Green could not throw a thick alchemy book to the Weirlie twins like he taught Lin, and let them learn by themselves, but had to instruct them all the time. After all, unlike refining alchemy creations, the battlefield is changing rapidly, and the skills of applying alchemy to actual combat are also ever changing. Time passed day by day, and in a blink of an eye, it was the day when the blood fusion potion was completed. In the past half month, Lin En completely understood the theoretical knowledge of blood fusion magic, and in the process of brewing blood fusion potion in this month, Lin En also completely mastered the brewing method of blood fusion potion. At this time, in Green's room, Lin En looked at the blood fusion potion in the crucible. After brewing for half a month, the potion in the crucible was as transparent as water, and the bottom was clear. But when Lin En stirred the potion in the crucible with his magic wand, he found that the potion in the crucible was very viscous, like a coupling agent. The next step is the last step. Lin En, add the essence of the magical animal you want to fuse. Just add 3 to 5 drops. Green said so. Lin En nodded slightly, and he looked at the dozen bottles of scarlet blood on the table. These were the essences of different magical animals, including fire dragons, giants, fairies, nifflers, thunderbirds, etc. Lin En hesitated for a moment, and finally chose to open a bottle of blood essence of the Hexidali Island's black dragon. placed it on the crucible, and tapped it 3 times, dripping 3 drops of fire dragon blood essence into the crucible. The moment the blood essence filled with magic power sank into the potion, the originally transparent and flawless potion suddenly turned scarlet. The blood essence, which had become a little turbid and dull due to being stored for too long, turned the whole pot of potion into a bright red after being integrated into the blood fusion potion. Turn the alcohol lamp to the maximum, use the magic wand to stir the potion clockwise for 3.5 times, and then stir it counterclockwise twice. Green commanded. Lin En did as he was told. The originally calm potion suddenly boiled, and many small bubbles floated from the bright red potion and exploded on the surface of the potion. This process lasted for nearly half an hour, and Green asked Lin En to turn off the alcohol lamp. After half an hour of brewing, the bright red potion turned dark red again, but unlike the turbid dark red at the beginning, the potion now looked extremely clear. Seeing the appearance of the blood fusion potion, Green nodded with satisfaction and said, "Perfect, integrate the blood fusion array into the potion." Lin En nodded, and as he waved his magic wand, countless fine golden threads surrounded the crucible and kept interweaving. Alchemy arrays condensed above the blood fusion potion, combined together according to fixed positions, and turned into an extremely complex array. In the field of alchemy, those who can connect countless alchemy arrays together are called arrays, which are all very profound. Before coming into contact with the blood fusion array, the only 2 arrays that Lin En mastered were the time stillness array and the time cycle array, which were extremely powerful. At this time, under Lin En's control, the blood fusion array slowly fell into the crucible. At the moment when the alchemy array and the blood fusion potion merged, violent magic fluctuations spread out, and Lin En seemed to hear the dragon roar of the Hexadillion Island's black dragon. But the next moment, the surging magic power and the faint dragon roar disappeared, as if what Lin En had just felt was all an illusion. All the power was gathered and condensed into this dark red potion. Then, the potion in the crucible began to shrink on its own, as if the excess water was evaporated. The potion that was originally full of potion ended up with only a small bottle. Lin En put the blood fusion potion in the crucible into a narrow-necked bottle with a capacity of 1 ounce, just filling it up. Lin En held the blood fusion potion in front of his eyes and asked curiously, "Is this the blood fusion potion of the Hexadillion Island's black dragon?" Lin En could feel that this small potion contained a huge power, which was enough to destroy a house in an instant. Green nodded slightly, chuckled and said, "Yes, I didn't expect you to choose the essence of the Hexadillion black dragon. In fact, the blood fusion potion made with the essence of the Hexadillion black dragon is basically only for quasi-demon king level wizards, or even demon king level wizards." Lin En was not surprised. According to the rigid requirements of blood fusion, the wizard who fused the blood must have the ability to crush the magical animal whose blood was fused. In order to crush the Hexadillion black dragon, the wizard must have a quasi-demon king level magic level, right? Exclamation mark. After all, when Lin En crushed the Hungarian Horntail in the first event of the True Wizard tournament, he relied on his own affinity for fire. And wasn't Lin En a quasi-demon king level wizard at that time? Exclamation mark. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 648 I Can't Do Anything. After Lin En finished brewing the blood fusion potion, Green asked Lin En to practice the blood fusion spell in the next 2 days. With the help of the blood fusion spell, taking the blood fusion potion, and completing the fusion of blood talents. This is the complete process of blood fusion magic. As a Demon King level wizard, if you want to master a spell, even if it is an extremely difficult blood fusion spell, 2 days is more than enough. After completely mastering the blood fusion spell, Lin En went to Green again. After examining Lin's blood fusion spell, Green said, "Very good, next I will teach you another blood magic. Do you remember, when you were sparring with Fred and George half a month ago, they had a common mind and tacit understanding in casting spells?" Lin nodded and said, "Remember, they are twin brothers. Perhaps that is why magic has given them the talent of common mind and tacit understanding." Yes, this is a natural common mind, and it is also a blessing of magic, Green said meaningfully. But what if I tell you that this kind of common mind and tacit understanding can be artificially produced? Artificially produced? Lin En frowned and asked, the effect of the blood magic you are going to teach me is to make the two casters have a common mind, just like Fred and George, right? Green nodded, but shook his head, and said, yes, this blood magic can greatly improve the tacit understanding between the two casters, and even reach the level of common mind. But this is the effect produced by the wizard through blood magic, not the innate existence. Therefore, the common mind achieved through this blood magic cannot be compared with Fred and George. Green said, the tacit understanding between Fred and George, or the talent of common mind, is really too abnormal. They are like a soul with two bodies. Even without any communication, they can understand each other's intentions. Even if they fight back to back and cannot see each other's vision, they can still perfectly refine an alchemy array together to fight the enemy. If the shared thoughts achieved by wizards using blood magic can make the two casters exert a power greater than 2 in battle, then Fred and George can exert a power greater than 10 in battle. So, Lin asked humbly, how should this blood magic be performed? Or, what kind of ceremony does this blood magic require? Green asked, do you remember the way to conclude a blood alliance that I taught you last year? Lin gave an affirmative answer. Green continued, this blood magic is called the Heart Image Covenant, which is similar to the way of concluding a blood alliance, but the Heart Image Covenant uses the heart blood of both wizards. According to Green, if Lin wants to cast the Heart Image Covenant, then he needs to provide a drop of his own heart blood with the other party connected to the Heart Image Covenant, merge them into one, and then recite the magic spell. The merged heart blood will turn into a mark, which will be imprinted on the eyebrows of Lin and the object of the Heart Image Covenant. The mark imprinted on the forehead of both parties became a bridge for the two parties to communicate with each other, so as to achieve the effect of the mutual understanding of the two parties' minds. Heart blood. Lin En was thoughtful. For some reason, he suddenly felt that the magic world in front of him seemed to become mysterious. Compared with the blood fusion magic, there are even fewer wizards who know the blood magic of the Heart Image Covenant. Therefore, there is no corresponding magic book for this blood magic called the Heart Image Covenant, which can teach the later generations how to practice this magic. Therefore, Green can only teach Lin En the skills and key points of this blood magic by word of mouth. Lin En, I want you to master this blood magic within 3 days, and after 3 days, I plan to take Fred, George and you to see your master together. Green said so. Lin En nodded slightly. It has become their routine to go to Nico Manor to see the master every year. That is, Fred and George have not met Nico Flamel yet. Let's go back to the day when Lin and Irina parted ways at Hogwarts Castle. When Lin took the portkey to the French magic world, Irina also returned to her home. Dad, Mom, I'm back. Irina appeared in the Lowell family in a flash of white light. She looked at Igor Lowell and Carolina Lowell, who were sitting on the sofa, and looked a little stunned, and shouted happily. Igor stood up, looked at his daughter who was hugging him, and said with a smile, no wonder you didn't want us to pick you up this year. It turns out that you have mastered such a magical means of teleportation. After spending a wonderful Christmas at Raw Castle, and meeting so many famous people in the magic world, the Lowell couple's acceptance of magic has been very high. Not to mention that his daughter teleported to his home. Even if she returned home with a fire dragon, Igor would not be surprised. Irina smiled, but soon, her expression became serious. Irina looked at her parents seriously and said, Dad, Mom, I came back this time with the Anywhere key, because I have something very important to tell you. Seeing his daughter so serious, Igor also put away his smile, and looked at Irina seriously. Carolina also came over, and held Irina's hand. Irina said solemnly, Dad, Mom, the British wizarding world is about to be in chaos. For your safety, can I ask you to give up your work, and give up contact with the outside world for the next year or even longer? The British wizarding world is not safe. The lives of ordinary people like us are like grass in the eyes of the terrorists among the black wizards. I can protect this house, so that no one can find it. Even if those terrorists put their noses against our windows, they can't see the existence of this house. But if I leave this house, I can't do anything. So, Dad, Mom, I hope you can cut off contact with the outside world until the crisis in the British wizarding world is completely resolved and the unrest is completely quelled. Can you? Irina asked. Hearing this, Igor and Carolina looked at each other. Carolina asked in a worried tone, Irina, can you tell Mom what happened? Your father and I are just ordinary people. How could those terrorists among the dark wizards come to us? Chapter 649 Forgotten by the World. Hearing Carolina's question, Irina straightened her chest. She said in a tender voice, I, Irina, your daughter, am one of the only 4 Demon King level wizards in the British wizarding world. I have severely damaged the leaders of the terrorists among the dark wizards. I'm the biggest worry of the terrorists and an enemy that must be eliminated. They can't defeat me, let alone kill me, so I'm worried that they will target my family. Before we completely kill the terrorists among the dark wizards, I must ensure the safety of my family. Irina said so. Irina told Igor and Carolina the history of the British wizarding world over the past few decades, including how Voldemort became the Dark Lord step by step, and how he made a comeback after being rebounded by his own killing curse and turned into a ghost. The Dark Lord of the magic world. Carolina held Irina's hand tightly, her face full of worry. You are still a child. Why do you have to take on such a heavy responsibility? This is so unfair to you. At this time, Igor, the only male in the Lowell family, came over and said in a deep voice, the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Since Irina has chosen to take on all of this, as her parents, we have no choice but to support her with all our strength. Even if Igor was worried about Irina in his heart, he couldn't show it. As the pillar of the family, how could he fall down? Exclamation mark. Irina raised her head and smiled. So, you agree? Igor hesitated, nodded, and said, yes, but we can cut off contact with the outside world at work, but if we stay at home, how can we get food and other necessities to maintain life? Irina said quickly, I have thought about this a long time ago. Lin En and I have agreed that, if you are willing, he will take you to the Roll Castle, to live with Lin En's mother. If you don't want to, he will also let the Roll family's house elf Gale, who you saw at Christmas, deliver supplies to your home every day, so you don't have to worry about the problem of living supplies. Irina said so. Long before this day, Irina had considered the safety of her parents, and after discussing with Lin En proposed this method. It is said that after Lin En consulted her mother Rowena fully supported this. She even wrote to Lin En and told her that she was looking forward to living with Irina's parents. Hearing Irina's words, Igor and Caroline both hesitated. After a long while, Igor looked at Irina seriously and asked, Irina, have you decided on Lin En? Hearing this, Irina immediately expressed her opinion. Of course, Lin En will be the only choice I entrust my life to. In that case, Igor looked at Carolina beside him and said to Irina, then please tell Lin En that child that she will bother you a lot in the coming period. Carolina understood, and she smiled and agreed, yes, just think of it as us living with our future in-laws in advance. Hearing her parents' words, Irina's pretty face blushed. She didn't dare to look up at them. She whispered, oh, what are you talking about? I'll use the two-way mirror to tell Lin En later. Seeing that his daughter was shy, Igor smiled and deliberately changed the subject. He sighed. Suddenly I have to leave the place where I have lived for decades and live in another place. In the end, I still feel reluctant. Irina finally raised her head and said, don't worry, Dad. I will protect this house with a Fidelius charm. As long as I'm alive, this house will always be safe. I will keep everything here. If you and Mom miss home one day, you can come back to see it. However, after casting the Fidelius charm, this house will be hidden in my heart by magic. Before the magic is lifted, I will not be able to come back here. Irina said with regret. Irina reluctantly looked at everything in the house, especially the small room, where she had lived for more than 10 years. After this day, everything here will be hidden by magic. And as the caster of the Fidelius charm, she will not be able to enter this house. After Igor and Carolina packed up their things, Irina took them to the outside of the Roll Manor with the Anywhere door key. After sensing the arrival of the 3 people, the house elf Gale warmly welcomed them into the Roll Castle. Obviously, it had been instructed in advance. Hello, Auntie. Before we get rid of Voldemort, my parents are in the care of Auntie. Irina greeted Rowena and said crisply. No, who is the parent, and who is the child? Igor said helplessly. He looked at Rowena. Mrs. Rowe, thank you for your help. After entrusting Igor and Carolina to Rowena, Irina returned to her house. She looked at the empty house. For some reason, she always felt a little empty in her heart. She sighed softly, and with a wave of her wand, the house was hidden bit by bit. The power of the Fidelius charm gently wrapped the house, erasing it from the eyes of the world, and letting it be forgotten by the world. Irina looked at the empty place in front of her. How similar was what she was doing now to what Hermione did in the original book! Exclamation mark. The only thing that made her feel lucky was that she met Lin. The joint efforts of her and Lin made the situation in the magic world much better than in the original book, and the existence of the Roll Castle gave her parents more ways to retreat. She didn't need to be forced to erase her parents' memories sadly, nor did she need to flee like a rat crossing the street. She and he could defeat the Dark Lord who was once feared by the world from the front under the witness of the world. After the Fidelius charm took effect, Irina took out another anywhere door key, and this time the destination was the villa where Newt lived. Like Lin, she also needed to improve her strength during this short vacation, and the space power used by the Anywhere door key and the Traceless extension spell was undoubtedly a power worth mastering. And the person who has the most in-depth research on the power of space in this world is naturally her teacher, Newt Scamander, who masters a powerful Traceless extension spell and has developed the Anywhere door key. Chapter 650 New topic, Space Anchor Point. In the flash of white light, Irina appeared in the living room of the villa. After learning that Irina was going to ask him how to use the power of space, Newt waited in the living room in advance. He looked at the girl who suddenly appeared here and said with a smile, "Welcome, Irina." Irina said respectfully, "Good afternoon, teacher." Newt responded, and while opening the suitcase that had been spread on the ground, he said, "You want to use the power of space. It should be to use it in battle, right?" Irina nodded slightly and said, "That's right. For now, the use of the power of space in battle is only the displacement technique of apparition, but lacks lethal means. But I think the lethality of the power of space is probably not weak." Irina's statement is not groundless. Those wizards who have split into two bodies in the process of apparition are the best examples. Unlike the cutting spell, the splitting phenomenon caused by spatial dislocation is a more thorough cutting. If the two parts are cut apart, and the spatial distance is large enough, then apart from the regeneration of the broken limbs, the wizard has almost no chance of healing the wound in the battle. But Irina's expectations were doomed to fail. Newt shook his head and said, "Your idea is too beautiful, Irina. The power of space is an extremely stable force. Wizards can use it for space travel and to expand space, but it is very difficult to directly control it and turn it into great lethality." Newt said so. Irina frowned slightly and asked, "But how do we explain the destructive power generated by the collapse of space? The splitting phenomenon of apparition and the fragmentation of space after overexpanding space are all destructive forces that are enough to kill a person." Newt said softly, "That's the backlash caused by the wizard's improper use of the power of space, isn't it? Unless you use the Imperious Curse to control the enemy and let them use the power of space improperly and suffer those backlashes, it is difficult for you to actively impose the backlash of space on the enemy." Irina opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but Newt interrupted her. "Okay, Irina, let's not discuss the lethality of space first." Newt half entered the open suitcase and said happily, "Let's go into the small world first. After you told me that you wanted to study the power of space, I built a small research institute inside." Irina finally nodded and followed Newt into the suitcase and entered the small world inside the suitcase. After coming out of the house connected to the entrance, Irina found that a silver building appeared on the lawn not far away. Newt led Irina towards the silver building and said as he walked, "The space in this institute has been reinforced by me twice, which is enough to support some simple research on spatial force." Irina jogged all the way to catch up with Newt's pace. She asked, "Teacher, are we going to continue to study the Anywhere door key this time? I think the spatial force consumed when making Anywhere door keys can be further reduced." Newt opened the door of the institute and let Irina in. He smiled and shook his head and said, "No need. Today's anywhere dorkies have reached the level I expected. What's more, with your power as a Demon King level wizard, even a cross-border anywhere dorky can be made within a breath, right? Irina scratched her head embarrassedly. She said coquettishly, so what if I'm a Demon King level wizard? I'm still your student. After that, Irina observed the environment inside the institute. This research institute is very small, not even as big as a classroom in Hogwarts Castle. Not far from Newt and Irina, there is a metal shelf. Irina can see a lot of metal materials and various magical animal materials on the shelf. This time we are going to study a new topic I proposed, which is the production of space anchor points. Newt looked at Irina and said so. Hearing Newt's words, Irina couldn't help but think of something similar in a game she played in her previous life. She blurted out subconsciously, teleportation anchor? Hearing this, Newt was stunned. He smiled and said, you are right to call it that. The new topic I proposed about space anchors is how to anchor multiple space coordinates and connect them in series so that wizards can teleport between these space coordinates at will. Irina frowned. She asked curiously, isn't that the Flu network? Newt shook his head and explained, no, unlike the Flu network, the space coordinates I want to anchor are movable space coordinates. In other words, use a certain object as a space anchor. In this way, the wizard can carry this item on his body, and other wizards holding space anchors can be teleported to the wizard's location through the connection between the space anchors. Space anchors will be the fastest and most convenient means of support in the wizard war. Wizards do not need to know the coordinates of the other party, nor do they need to contact in advance, and they can reach the other party's location in an instant. Newt introduced. Irina's expression became even more strange, and she said, pocket anchor point. Newt clapped his hands and said, that's a good name. If our research is successful, then the finished product will be called a pocket anchor point. Irina hesitated and asked, teacher, what step have you reached in this research? Newt chuckled and said, if you want to make a so-called pocket anchor point, the necessary steps are to anchor the space, make a carrier, and build a connection. And the last two steps are almost not difficult. To make a carrier, it is nothing more than using alchemy to make a high quality shell. Your partner, Lin En, has enough experience. As for building a connection, our Flu network has given us enough references. We just need to copy and apply it to the pocket anchor point. Therefore, the only thing we need to study is how to anchor the spatial coordinates of an object and make the anchored spatial coordinates change as the object moves. Newt said, the so-called anchoring is to use an anchor to fix something so that it is not affected by external factors. Now, this invisible anchor is to fix the spatial coordinates so that it is not affected by external factors. However, Newt wants to change the spatial coordinates of the anchor as the carrier moves. How can this be done? Exclamation mark. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.